Of course, because why wouldn't she? Nancy Pelosi. My God, she has doctored up January 6th footage by adding audio. This is from a journalist. I've got the news scoop here. Just the News founder, John Sullivan. He has now gone publicly, discussed some revelations surrounding the questionable conduct by the U.S. government representatives during the Capitol riots. You know, I was up last night and I saw an article from the Babylon Bee and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. New footage from the January 6th riots, if you want to call them that, protests. New footage shows the sandbag that took out Joe Biden. It was there. It was there. The sandbag that took out Joe Biden was there. That's new footage that just came in. I love that Babylon Bee article. I'm going to get to the January 6th footage. Everything about January 6th was scripted. Let me say that again. Everything about January 6th was scripted. I'm going to get into the new footage that we've got. It's a bombshell. This John Sullivan from Just the News, his outlet here, Just the News, was granted unfettered access to the January 6th tapes by House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Guess what? It was faked. The sound was dubbed in basically the January 6th committee faked the tapes. They dubbed up sounds. They faked the American people by adding sound that wasn't on the tapes. They added sound to these January 6th tapes. I mean, this is amazing. 44 hours of footage from the event were released to Fox News, Tucker Carlson host, for the purposes of reporting earlier this year. But now we've got Just the News. They've got their hands on it. Democrat politicians and member of the media alike have reacted with fury at the time, insisting such transparency would jeopardize the Capitol's security. So that's what they said about Tucker Carlson talking about the January 6th tapes. They were like, well, the security of the Capitol, it's at stake. The January 6th committee was nothing but, it was just a show. It was just a show. And they were lying to the American people, and they were doctoring up January 6th footage. I've got so much to get to here this Monday morning, 6:08 a.m. I'll get to the January 6th footage. We're going to unpack it here on the Morning Buzz. Plus, Ron DeSantis has a very blunt response for Donald Trump, who says no one knows what woke means. And I think Ron is being way too focused on the culture war. Not to say that the culture war is not important. I've never downplayed the culture war. I think every day I talk about transgenderism in our schools, in the public indoctrination camps, i.e. public schools. I talk about this stuff every single day. But he's too focused on it to where it's concerning, and it's almost like he's making an effort to not talk about foreign policy. And I think it's telling. And Trump is trying to point that out here. He goes after Ron DeSantis hard, and he tries to say that nobody knows what woke means, that he doesn't like the word woke. I'm going to unpack it here. Tim Scott, he was going to appear on The View. I thought this was funny. He's going to appear on The View today, Monday, after Joy Behar called him a bad black guy. So I want to go back into the Wayback Machine and just point out how racist Joy Behar is. So if you are an nincompoop and you watch The View, stay tuned, because you are really going to want to hear what Joy List Behar is usually what I call her. Joy List Behar, you know what she has said is going to make you realize that she is a raging racist. And I don't even know how she has a platform. I don't even know how they keep her on without firing her. And this is a big story today. 2 elderly men, they were physically assaulted while praying outside a Baltimore Planned Parenthood clinic, leaving blood on the sidewalk and one man with a fractured bone in his face. Yes, but they're the party of peace, right? The liberals, they're the most peaceful people out there. They're so tolerant. All this and more ahead on the Morning Buzz. Now let's get into Ron DeSantis first. I want to get there. Ron DeSantis can, in fact, define the word woke, and he does a good job doing this. But he's totally missing the point. The media is totally missing the point on why Donald Trump came out and he went after Ron DeSantis for saying the word woke, 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 and nobody knows what it means. And Ron DeSantis does define it, and he is refusing to talk about anything else, and that's a big problem in his campaign. And I think he's going to wind up even more irrelevant than he already is. I hate to say it, but he's really down in the polls, folks. And I know people are going to say, yeah, you can't trust the polls. Okay, but like, you have to like look at this. He has a 20% lead over Ron DeSantis. Don't trust the polls. Okay, I guess Nikki Haley has a shot then. Vivek Ramaswamy. Not to say I don't like Vivek Ramaswamy. I can't stand neocon Nikki Haley. But, like, I guess we should put Nikki Haley up there then. Of course, you also agree with polling at some degree. If there's a poll out there, the Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump polls did have Hillary Clinton up, but not by so much. I mean, as much as this. He is the leading GOP primary candidate. So when Ron DeSantis, he says woke, 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 which has led the GOP primary candidate, Donald Trump, to claim that he doesn't like the word because no one knows what it means. Then the political journalismers, outsourcing their news desks to the former president, do what they usually do, and they said, oh my God, did you hear what Trump said? So they went out there and they were like, oh my gosh, this is what he said. He said that he doesn't know what woke means and blah, blah, blah. If you're watching live on Facebook, you can see me in studio. You can also see the clips that I've got. This is Donald Trump saying that he doesn't know what woke means and that he doesn't like the term. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
It's gone sick. And I don't like the term woke because I hear woke, woke, woke. You know, it's like just a term that half the people can't even define it. They don't know what it is. It's gone sick. And I don't like the term woke because I hear woke, woke, woke. You know, it's like just a term that half the people can't even define it. They don't know what it is.
So what exactly was wrong and with what he said? I don't know what was wrong there. Half the people, he said, half the people can't define it. I mean, that's so true. People don't even know what woke is, what we mean as conservatives get what it means. But half the country doesn't really know what it means, right? And here's Ron DeSantis going out there and he's using woke, 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 woke. And look, I do want to point this out. Donald Trump uses woke all of the time. All of the time. This is not what he meant. It's not about the word woke. What Donald Trump is doing is he's trying to say that Ron DeSantis is not talking about anything else. And that should be of a concern to the American people. And I'll get to that. But DeSantis got the question during the campaign stop in Iowa. You know, woke, in short, is cultural Marxism. It is socialism. It is communism. It's cultural Marxism, where they try to get your kid to believe in their gender identity. And I don't know. I saw What is a Woman again over the weekend, and it was a fantastic film. But why are we here? Because Ron DeSantis has been using the word woke to describe the radical progressive agenda he's been fighting against. Great. Yes, which I think is awesome. Somebody needs to be fighting this radical progressive agenda where they've got gay porn in the children's libraries, in the public library, and for your 4-year-old to read. Okay, that's where we're at right now. And if you're behind if you don't think that that's what's going on. I don't want to downplay the culture war, but Ron DeSantis doesn't care about globalism, and he doesn't care about the corruption of the deep state. He hasn't been talking about it the entire time he's been on campaigning. Now, he's been saying that Florida is where you go and where woke goes to die, which, like I said, is great, but the culture war is deeply divisive, and I think that the president needs to be all in when it comes to America first. Ron still has yet to be questioned, which is concerning to me, about foreign policy, about Ukraine. Anyway, so this is what Donald Trump said. here about the term woke. He says that you don't even know what the term is, you can't define it. I really don't like the term woke either because it's playing off of a word. It's the awakening, which we all know has religious undertones. An awakening, a great awakening. It's a revival of some kind. It's a bigger than a revival. It goes global. A revival starts in the church. Great awakenings go out into the world, even the secular world. So, like the deceiver does, they take the language and they change it to fit their agenda. For me, I really like the word evil instead of woke because I mean, having a porno movie for classroom materials and readings for an assignment, that's just straight up evil, in my opinion. So Ron DeSantis got the question, can you define what woke is? And here's Ron DeSantis. And like I said, I'm Facebook Live, YouTube Live. You can see me there in the studio. This is Ron DeSantis on the campaign trail defining what woke actually means because Donald Trump said, look, I don't like the term woke, and half the people don't know what it means. So here's Ron DeSantis defining it.
Well, woke is an existential threat to our society. I mean, it's an attack on truth. It's a form of cultural Marxism, and it really subordinates merit and achievement to things like identity politics. You can't have a vibrant free society if every institution is dominated by woke ideology. And to say it's not a big deal, that just shows, you don't understand what a lot of these issues are right now.
So there you have it, which is great. I think that's awesome, Ron DeSantis. Okay, now can we get a reporter to ask Ron about Ukraine and his approach to globalism? What is he going to do? Date one. Trump, what he's been saying is that these people are fighting this culture war, and people are fighting it on both sides. You've got the government trying to fight it on both sides here, and the media is fueling this culture war. And I myself, at the end of the day, I'm more concerned, and we should all be more concerned about World War III. All right, that's the better question here. Not better, it's just different. And I don't know. I really hope Ron DeSantis in this post announcement on Twitter here somehow gets asked the question about foreign policy. He needs to get out there and start talking about foreign policy. But I also think that a reporter, instead of asking him about what the word woke means, because, yeah, that's so important, the definition of the word woke. We know what's going on. We know that they are indoctrinating our children, identity politics. We know that there is something plaguing America and dividing us both. I say let the churches fight it out. I think that the churches could fight woke policy and woke indoctrination. But Ron DeSantis, his polling only saw like a 2% bump in national polls, and Trump is in double digits, right? And DeSantis, he just got into double digits. And when you consider, if you consider political polling is not as reliable as it used to be, which I do understand, but this proves that the Twitter glitch in DeSantis's announcement was a much bigger deal to his supporters than he would want to admit. That at the end of the day, that's just true. And if any good reporter were to ask Ron DeSantis some questions, one, it would be about Ukraine. Two, it would be about his polling and why he's down so much. I think that the two are not separate. I think that the reason why he's down so far in the polls is because he refuses to talk about foreign policy. All right, I got to take a break here on the Morning Buzz, but I'm going to be back, and let's talk about joyless BEHAR. I have to go into the Wayback Machine to prove to you just how racist she is. So Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott, who I think might be running for president. I don't know. I don't think he's officially announced. But she went after him and said that he wasn't a good black man. How racist. And then get this, folks. I mean, I've got so much from Joy Behar, including her dressing in blackface. And this woman still has a position on The View. So she's not going to be there today, but Tim Scott will be on The View today. And, nincompoops who watch The View, I really want you to tune in on the other side, because this white broad has tried to white-splain racism to Tim Scott before, and I've got all of the receipts next. Welcome to the live stream. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you are watching right now, please comment and please like the video. Smash that like button. Okay, we are going to be here talking about Joyless BEHAR and her comments about Tim Scott. She's lashed out before at Black Americans in 2020 when there was this Black congressional candidate, Kimberly. She called out Joy Behar for performing in blackface, and Behar told the Black congressional candidate everyone loved her in blackface, which is something else. So I've got the receipt here. I've also got the receipts in 2022 when she said something really racist, and she said that Black people can't get firearms, that they don't know how to get firearms. Really quite funny. And folks, this isn't the first time. So she's gone after Tim Scott very recently. I think it was, I don't know, sometime a couple of months ago. She's gone after him before. So I don't know what her problem is with Tim Scott, probably because he's Black and he doesn't fit her definition of Black, which was extremely racist. So the reason why I'm bringing this up, Tim Scott is expected to appear on The View today, which I know you're like so excited. I know you've got your DVR set. No doubt he's going to get asked about Trump and, DeSantis, I don't know which one. It would be nice to see if Joy and the had some lady cojones, and it would have been nice to see her to get out there and challenge the senator's blackness to his face. My gut says that if she wasn't already off on Monday, she would have called in sick today. So then I've also got this other story, which is just a gut-wrenching. I'll share the picture with you about the two elderly gentlemen, who were beaten senseless for praying outside of an abortion clinic. Yeah. And I've got numbers on this. Nobody's talking about this. If you want to talk about domestic, sure, Ron, let's talk about domestic. We should be talking about the rate at which pregnancy resource centers and pro-life centers are being attacked. I think I've got the numbers here. It's 157 or so. Pro-life centers have been attacked just in this year alone. 157. That's insanity. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go grab some more stories. I got to go grab some audio. I'll be right back. Coming up in just a little while, get this, Black Chicagoans, they're angry at the $51 million aid package for illegal immigrants. How dare this mayor and city council have the guts to give illegal aliens $51 million? Folks, I mean, this is just the beginning of baking the cake that is going to be just so many different layers. I mean, you've got immigrants having $51 million. They're going to be housed in hotels. They're going to be housed in colleges. They're going to be housed everywhere. Chicago residents, they're furious about the city passing this $51 million aid package. I mean, $51 million. I feel like sometimes I ramble off millions and billions of dollars and we're just like, oh yeah. No, these numbers are huge, and the city just passed this. They have gotten a lot of pushback actually from Black residents who claimed the deal is actually going to negatively impact their communities. So, quote, "We have not gotten anything for our community, and we are sick and tired of being sick and tired," one resident shouted at the council meeting, adding, "Enough is enough." So, I mean, where is all of this money going? I don't think it's going to the people. Chicago is a mess. It's just a mess. And I'd imagine a lot of this money is going to be helping people in Wilbur Wright College who are being housed there over the summer while the college students are away. They're going to be getting, like their dorm caddies. Wouldn't that be something if you have the illegal aliens, We're sending them off to college. We're going to get them the little dormitory caddies, the shower caddies. We're going to get them their college tapestries for them to hang up in their dormitory. A tapestry, right? This is just going to get worse and worse, folks. I've got that to get to. Also, Donald Trump, he was out in Iowa at this town hall, and I have a couple of clips here, and I want to point this out because Donald Trump, I want to do a deep dive into this latest town hall because there's questions now surrounding the death toll being reported in the Ukraine-Russia war, which is a big deal. If people are lying about that death toll, there's a reason why. It might be much, much, much larger than what we think. And I want to talk about that. Also, F-16s, they created the sonic boom as they intercepted this civilian plane over D.C. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. And then the plane crashed into the Virginia mountains. So I want to talk about that. It appears that it was just a civilian plane that was in restricted airspace. So I do want to talk about that. I think that the response is something that we need to look at, and how quickly they got this plane out of the sky. The pilot, I think, of the private plane was unconscious. So I'll be getting into all of that. Plus, these two elderly men beat up. And this is one thing that nobody talks about. Okay, let's talk about the trans issue. Sure, we've been talking about the trans issue, domestic policy. But nobody's talking about how pregnancy resource centers and pro-life centers have been attacked at an alarming rate. I have numbers, and these numbers are going to scare you of how much pregnancy resource centers and pro-life centers are being attacked. But these two elderly guys, they recently got beat up so bad. One guy has fractures to his cheeks, and another guy tried to help him, and he got beat up. They got thrown onto the ground. So I've got that story here coming up in just a little while. But first, let's get into some good news. I think we need some good news for our Monday, right? So here's some good news. Today is National Thank God It's Monday, a day to embrace Mondays instead of dread them. So today is Monday, and I know, like you, I always dread Mondays. I'm just like, I'm so tired. But what do you have planned this week? What do you have planned? I got a lot of things planned. Everybody always waits until June or May to move. So I'm helping a lot of friends move. So I'll be moving furniture all week. I've got it's a sweet story coming out of North Carolina, which is really actually super interesting. This year has been hectic for Miss Abby. She lives in Thomasville, North Carolina, and she's finishing up her 3-year doctorate of nursing practice program at the University of North Carolina while working full-time as a registered nurse. So she's going to school, she works as a full-time nurse, and by the way, she's pregnant. And she has a due date here, I guess, of April 27th. Everything came together in a big way back in early May of this year. On May 1st, Abby took and passed her board exam. On May 3rd, she delivered her baby son. Even though she showed up a little late, her son Bodie, is his name, arrived, and that's so sweet. Abby and Bodie spent the night together in the hospital, and they were discharged the next day, which is on May 4th of this year. And wouldn't you know it, there was something special on the calendar that day, her graduation. So she graduated from her doctorate. It's like a 3-year doctor of nursing program. I don't know. But Abby showed up to the graduation ceremony and walked across the stage to receive her diploma, while her husband and Bodie watched from home on a video and streamed the event. Because you can't probably take a newborn, in North Carolina heat to sit through a graduation that long. But Abby said she had no regrets about showing up, even though her life had been so busy at the time, right? She was having a baby, she was taking exams and working the full-time job. Like, did you take work off from like May 1st to May 4th? That would have been a crazy week. But she said, once I got there, I walked, I was like, I'm so glad I came. It was an overwhelming feeling of accomplishment, and I can't even describe the feeling I felt. I was just overjoyed. Yeah, humans are amazing. Aren't we incredible? I don't know. I read stories like that, and I think of stories like that, and I'm like, can human beings get any more cool? Definitely take something supernatural. Don't know anything about Abby's faith, but I mean, there's no way you could do all of that without God being on your side, right? I'll be back here in just a little bit. We are going to be talking about Joyless Behar and how racist she is. I've got the receipts. I mean, I've got them all the way back from her. She tried to say that Black Americans can't own firearms, or they don't know how to get firearms, I guess. And then she also said that Tim Scott wasn't Black enough, or he wasn't the right type of Black guy. So Tim Scott is supposed to appear on The View today after Joy Behar actually called him a bad Black guy. But she's not going to be there, folks. How fitting, right? How fitting for Joy not to be there. I'll be back. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. Morning Cat from Myrtle Beach. Oh, I'm jealous. I love Myrtle Beach. I haven't gone in a very long time. I think I went when I was a little girl, and it was just very busy from what I remember. I think that and correct me if I'm wrong, on Myrtle Beach, there's ice cream trucks that drive up and down on the beach. And that's one thing I remembered. I was like, that is the coolest thing that has ever happened to me as a child, was watching the ice cream trucks drive up and down the beach and just sprinting, full on sprint to get to the ice cream man for like the little dinky ice creams because the ice cream truck doesn't actually have good ice cream. But yeah, kind of racist to say not the right kind of Black guy. Yeah. So Joyless Behar, we're going to get to her, but I've got receipts. So this woman has been racist, and I didn't know how racist Joy Behar really was until I started digging into this, because I saw Tim Scott was going to appear on The View, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. Being that he might be running for president. Right now, throw in the comments, if Donald Trump wasn't in, if Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis wasn't in, would it be Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, or Tim Scott? Who would you want? I really would like Vivek. I think Vivek is the coolest. He's an entrepreneur. I think he actually earned a spot here on the debate stage. So, you don't get to participate in the debates if your polling isn't high enough. Vivek actually has managed to get on the debate stage with in the primaries here. So that's going to be awesome. I would be all for Vivek Ramaswamy. I like Tim Scott too. But he's going to be on The View today, and apparently Joy is not going to be there. Isn't that convenient? Nobody's talking about these Planned Parenthood acolytes, these abortionists, these pro-abortionists, and how they are leaving the blood on the sidewalk. Literally, they're leaving blood on sidewalks. They are hurting people. These abortionists are hurting pro-lifers, including these two men. So two elderly men, they were physically assaulted this past week, praying outside of a Baltimore Planned Parenthood clinic, leaving all of this blood on the sidewalk. One guy has like fractures in his face. I mean, you should see the pictures. I'm going to pull them up here. I was hesitant on pulling these up because I know that, and warning, this is graphic. Graphic. Warning, this is your warning now. Pause this video or tune out for a quick second and don't let your kids watch this, because this is a very graphic picture of this man's face being super swollen from being pulverized by an abortion. But they're the tolerant ones, right? And that's so fun. They are the tolerant ones. Shut up. I know it. You know it. We're all so tolerant. Here we go. Okay, so let's see if I can't share this. Yeah, this is, here we go. Here's the article, and you can see here his face. There we go. Let me scroll in a little bit. Yeah, you can see it. So here we go. And mind you, this guy is like an elderly man, okay? I think this man is 73. I think that is the man. He's 73, Mark Crosby and Dick Schaefer. They are elderly, 70, 80. They were praying outside of an abortion facility when an unidentified white male attacked the 80-year-old guy. Crosby went to his aid and then also got attacked. So this might actually be the 80-year-old man. I don't know who this is, and it doesn't say. But point is, he's a pro-lifer, and he was praying. All he was doing was praying outside of the Planned Parenthood. Somebody comes up to him and pulverizes him. I'm going to get to this story because this should be treated like a hate crime, because the only reason why this guy was pulverized like he was because of his political leaning, or well, really his religious leanings, right? Because he was just praying outside of the Planned Parenthood, and he has religious feelings around abortion. And here you have somebody literally beating the snot out of him, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody says that it's a hate crime. It doesn't get national news. This guy was beaten for his religious beliefs. And if it was any other religion, if it was anything other than Christianity and praying outside of a Planned Parenthood, then this would be making national headlines. But it's not making national headlines. Why? Because he's a Christian and he's praying outside of a Planned Parenthood. What was his crime? What did he do? Well, there were a couple of elderly men, and they were beaten senseless. I know, I've got to do some heavy lifting today, and I hate doing stories like this, but this is so important because I've pulled numbers on this, and nobody's talking about the numbers. And I want to talk about the numbers. I also want to talk about the blatant ignorance of the media, and they are completely ignoring what's going on with pregnancy resource centers, pro-life centers. They are being attacked. There is a domestic terrorism afoot when it comes to these centers. And I have a story here. Two elderly men physically assaulted last week while praying outside of a Baltimore Planned Parenthood clinic. Yes, leaving blood all over the sidewalk. One man has a fractured bone in his face. But yes, liberals, they're so peaceful, they're so tolerant, and they're accepting of everybody. Yeah, okay. Tell me again, but with a straight face. We're going to get to that. Also, Tim Scott appearing on The View today. And you're like, why do I care, Kat? Because Tim Scott might actually be announcing his run for presidency. And I did a lot of homework for you nincompoops who actually watch the View. I know there's some of you out there who imagine being so lifeless and so sad where you actually watch The View religiously. I don't know. I don't know if I would want to meet you. It would just be so boring, bland, sad. But Joyless Behar, she's not going to be on The View today. I guess she has Mondays off. I don't know. I don't watch it. But I have the receipts, and I didn't realize how racist this woman actually is. And I feel like if you were to listen to just a few clips that I've pulled over the years and to understand that she actually dressed up in blackface. Like, this woman is so racist, and I can't even believe why she's on the air. I've seen a lot of crazy things in my time, but Joy Behar is quite literally the most racist person, I think. If you want to know what racism is, look at Joy Behar. That's the definition of a racist right there. So I've got that. I've got the receipts. I also want to do a deep dive into what Donald Trump said during an Iowa town hall on foreign policy. And this is so important because Ukraine, this Russia war, I don't think that death toll is accurate. I think the death toll is much higher than what they're leading on. Donald Trump says that the death toll is much higher. Now, I don't know if that's like a gut feeling of his or what, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's got some sources down there on the ground. I mean, he's deeply respected by military personnel. I'm sure still he is liked by the military, some people within the military. So I wouldn't doubt that he's got some insider information on that, that the death toll is higher. I have a very exciting week planned for us. I actually will be talking with somebody from Ukraine. And I cannot wait to do, I think it'll be tomorrow, folks, where we talk with somebody from Ukraine about the Ukraine war and what he thinks about it. And they've been going around trying to get aid for Ukraine, people who are dying, because at the end of the day, people are dying. And I think that the humanitarian aid should come from pastors, from Ukrainian pastors, from people who are working the streets and trying to gather up support to help Ukraine. I'm not against helping Ukraine. I'm against fueling a war, and we should be talking about peace. Donald Trump in Iowa at an event was the only one really talking about peace, and has been honestly the only politician in American history that has talked about peace the way that this guy has. I'm telling you. So we're going to get into all of that. First, I do want to start with this two elderly men being beaten. I know it's heavy lifting, and I am on the live stream, and I am sharing with you a photograph of the men. This is your warning. This is very graphic. Do not share this picture with your kids. So this is your warning. I'm going to share my screen here for those watching on the live stream. This man was bloodied. The sidewalk was bloody after the beating. And his name is Mark Crosby, 73, Dick Schaefer, 80. They were praying outside of an abortion facility when an unidentified white male attacked Schaefer, Dick Schaefer. He's 80. Crosby went over to help him, and he was also attacked. The assailant reportedly asked a Planned Parenthood escort to hold his drink before viciously assaulting the men. So Dick Schaefer told the police, hey, that the suspect spoke with him in an aggressive manner, opposing his pro-life ideals. Without any warning, he tackled him into this large flower pot. I haven't seen the video. I haven't been able to obtain it, but I guess there was this big flower pot that he pushed him into on the ground. A security officer provided police with security footage of the incident. I haven't gotten my paws on it. In an email to LifeSite News, the pro-life activist John Roswell is his name. He wrote that Schaefer was slammed against the glass of the building, and he also provided an update on Mark Crosby's condition, writing Crosby's plate bone in his upper right cheek had been completely fractured, and he was bleeding from some sort of an unidentified area. If you're on the live stream, you can see where he's bleeding here. It's above his eye, in the bone eye orbit. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. It's all shattered. And he has to have metal put into his face to try to replace the structure on which his face it looks. So he has to have reconstruction surgery. There's been a fundraiser launched for Crosby, and now it's topped out at 40,000. So they've paused donations. I don't know why they paused the donations, but they had to pause the donations for some reason. A lot of times people will do that once they reach the goal of their donations and they don't want any more money because it's not about the money, right? He just needs to pay for his face reconstruction. So I don't know why they paused the donations, but a lot of people donated to it. The fundraiser was launched by a Dr. Jay Walton. He's the president of the Baltimore County Right to Life. And Crosby, the 73-year-old man who got his face pulverized, was a volunteer for the Right to Life. So it's important to note that these victims were not robbed and that this vicious attack on these two men, it was simply because they were pro-life and they were praying. This should be treated like a hate crime. It should be. Their silence, the media, the mayor of Baltimore, Brandon Scott, who's a Democrat, the Maryland governor, Wes Moore, who's a Democrat, their silence on this attack will continue to put pro-lifers in danger throughout the state of Maryland and nationwide. This should be national news. It's not. I had to dig for this story. And it brings me back to this example. So that pro-life advocate, I think it was in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. It was in Philadelphia. His name is Mark Huck, and he was raided by the FBI after praying 50 feet away from a clinic. He was 50 feet away with his 12-year-old boy, and he was chased down the street by a Planned Parenthood escort. I've seen the video on this. This is wild. The guy starts engaging him, pushing him, yelling at him, yelling profanities. Mark, the pro-life activist, he was found not guilty on violations of the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. So at the end of the day, he wasn't found guilty, but his home was raided by the FBI in the middle of the night with all of his children there. And I've got the numbers. I told you I have the numbers, and this is important. 157 churches, 87 pregnancy resource centers, and other pro-life organizations in the country have been attacked since the Supreme Court opinion opposing to reverse Roe v. Wade was leaked in May of 2022. We remember this. These attacks have included firebombing, vandalism, graffiti, all the way to smashing windows, targeted online harassment, protesters threatening violence outside of pregnancy resource centers, churches. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, we need to start talking about this domestic issue. We have numbers, 157 churches, 87 pregnancy resource centers. This is not a one-off. This is planned. This is domestic terrorism, and people need to talk about it. I understand the trans issue. I understand it is very dangerous to have young boys going into girls' bathrooms. We saw what happened in Loudoun County, Virginia. We see what's happening every day with the trans issue. I'm not saying we should ignore it, but there are other things that need to be touched on other than the trans issue. I know it's very hot right now, but we can't forget that there's domestic terrorism going on right here. And the biggest threat, I think, to this country are these pro-abortionists. They are fired up. They are going to, and the fact that we don't have Democrat leadership coming out and condemning this sort of violence, and they've been silenced on this issue here with Crosby being beaten. It's going to cause more and more people to get beaten like Crosby. You need to come out and condemn violence right away. All right, we are going to talk about these F-16s. They created this big sonic boom because they intercepted a civilian plane that eventually crashed into the Virginia mountains. So you probably have seen this in the headlines. They're talking about it this morning. There was a big sonic boom. I guess the White House was put on red alert. I'm going to unpack it here for us. What exactly happened next on the Morning Buzz? You can text in at 309-451-9299. Where are you listening from? I love asking this question. I've got somebody listening from Myrtle Beach this morning. I've got somebody listening from Odell this morning. I've got somebody listening from Colfax this morning. So go ahead, text in where you're listening from. I'll be back. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching right now, smash that like button. Share this out with your normie friends. Wow, such lovable people, the left are. Yet no one is facing charges. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen any kind of charges. I don't know the suspect. They're trying to chase down the guy. I haven't seen any kind of charges brought against the man as of yet. I'm sure with the security footage that was provided to police from a security officer, they're going to have this guy and charge him. Are they going to charge him with a hate crime like he should be? Probably not, because that's just typical Democrat leadership. We've got the governor, we've got the mayor. When violence happens, it's so important for leadership to condemn it. Take your kids, for example. Okay, you got some kids. I know me and my brother, my brother and I, we used to fight all the time. Constantly we were fighting. There was one time I was really like into karate as a kid because of all the karate movies. But we would get into fights. As soon as I or my brother were to start fighting, my mom would be on us. She would be like, no, you can't do that. She would put us in different corners of the room. She'd put us in timeout. And if we were to fight with each other at all, she would condemn it, and there would be consequences, severe consequences, as in not severe, but I would get smacked. I would get the switch, right? If I were to beat up on my brother, vice versa. If he were to beat up on me, he'd get the switch too. So there has to be a condemning when violence happens to people. Because otherwise what's going to happen is that violence is going to continue because human beings are thinking that they can get away with it, or that it's acceptable. I would vote for either Tim Scott or Vivek. So that brings me to Tim Scott. We are going to be talking about him. It turns out that he will be on The View this afternoon. I'm actually really excited for this because I know that they're going to ask him about, but they're probably going to ask him about Trump and January 6th. That probably will be the first question, which brings me to this. Nancy Pelosi, right? She is saying that, there is proof now that she was, in a very Hollywood style, taken out of the Capitol that day on January 6th. And this is a very Hollywood editing that they've done. They dubbed noises to the January 6th footage shown in the committee. So the Pelosi committee actually doctored up these tapes and added audio. And this is according to a journalist, John Solomon, who has gotten the security footage back. And he noticed a lack of sound in many of the scenes that he had seen previously. So everything about January 6th was scripted. This is according to Solomon. And there has been where Just the News, that's the founder, John Solomon is the founder, he has talked to experts about the sound of the surveillance tape, and he was met with a response that, is explosive, that they doctored the tapes to sound worse than what they really were. For the January 6th committee, Pelosi's committee. A bit later, we will be talking about Nancy Pelosi's January 6th committee. We knew it was a total show, political theater from the beginning, but now I've got proof, folks, from experts that the Pelosi committee actually doctored up some tapes from January 6th by adding audio. So John Solomon, he is the founder of Just the News, and he's gone through some of this footage from Kevin McCarthy, the House Speaker, and he is now saying that these tapes look to be doctored up, and he noticed that there was a lack of sound in many of the scenes that he had previously seen and heard through the January 6th committee. He goes as far as to say that everything about January 6th was scripted. I mean, there's even footage of Nancy Pelosi running out of the Capitol in a very dramatic Hollywood type way. So I'm going to get to that here coming up in just a bit. Tim Scott is scheduled to appear on The View this morning. Or I don't know when The View airs. I have no idea. Nincompoops watch the show. But I've got the receipts. I didn't realize how joyless BEHAR was just so racist. I knew she said racist things. I didn't know that she had a history of being just overtly racist. And if she had any lady cojones to challenge the senator's blackness to his face, that would have been awesome to see. But she's out today. I guess she has the day off. My gut, if she didn't have the day off, she probably would have called in sick today because she does not want to tell Tim Scott that he's not black enough to his face. If y'all are watching on the live stream right now, be sure to smash that like button, give it a heart, or even a laughy face, or give it an anger face if what I'm saying angers you. This is very important for you to smash that like button right now. Smash it. Now, when I come back, I'm going to talk about Joyless Behar being extremely racist. She has said at one point that black people didn't understand how to obtain legal firearms in America. She went on to say that once blacks were able to understand the process, that we'd all be in trouble. This is all very racist. So this isn't the first time either that she's gone after. So she's lashed out at Tim Scott before, saying that he's not black enough and that he's not a good black because he doesn't hold far left leaning opinions, and that he's not a Democrat, he's a Republican. And she says that he's not a good black guy. Wow. This is not the first time, so I've got the receipts there. Also, back in 2020, she lashed out at this congressional candidate. She's black. Her name's Kimberly. And Kimberly actually called out Joy Behar on tape for performing blackface. So blackface is when you take black paint and really just paint over your face and pretend to be black, which it's offensive, right? I'd imagine if you talk to any black person that would be kind of offensive. I don't know for sure, but I'd imagine that's pretty offensive and pretty racist. Joy Behar, she told the black congressional candidate that called her out on this that everyone loved her in blackface. Yeah, you, a black woman, you're telling me and calling me out for performing in blackface and saying that you have issue with it. But me, the white woman, I'm going to tell you that everybody loved me in blackface and you're just crazy. Wow. So I've got the receipts here. Look, this is for low information nincompoops, The View. And it's dangerous and I can't believe it's on the air. Then also a little bit later, I do want to talk about Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump kind of. Donald Trump, earlier in their show, I was talking about Ron DeSantis and how he says, woke, 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 woke. Yes, we know what woke means. I know what woke means. A lot of people don't, though. And that's what Donald Trump was saying. He said half of the country doesn't understand what woke means. We know what woke means because we listen to programs like this and we get our news from not the mainstream. Okay, we know what woke means because we're awake to it. We understand. We're awake, not woke. But the woke don't know they're woke. That's the thing. And that's what Donald Trump was trying to say. He wasn't saying that he said, I really don't like the term. He said that half of the people really don't know what woke means. He chose his words very carefully there. Half of the people don't know what woke means. Ron DeSantis and the DeSantis campaign, what my concern is here is that they are going way too far into the culture war and they're abandoning or almost blatantly ignoring foreign policy, globalism, and this whole America First ideology where we have to get back to America First. Because at the end of the day, the role of the federal government, the president, is to protect our ability to provide for ourselves and to maintain our well-being as Americans. So we have to be safe. We have to be protected. They have to protect our ability to provide for our well-being and the well-being of our families. They should secure peace, safety, and prosperity in America for my family and for your family. That's what my belief and what the founders honestly believed the U.S. government was for. They are not there to help us. They are not there to aid us. They are not there to fight culture wars and create policy surrounding our public schools and what should be taught. They are there to secure peace, safety, and prosperity. The churches need to wake up. The churches, these drag preachers, that I'm live. That stuff needs to go. I'm not much of a cusser, but man, I'm telling you, sometimes I just want to say some things I really shouldn't. The churches need to wake up. They need to wake up, and they are the ones to be fighting this culture war. Because at the end of the day, that's going to be more impactful if the churches wake up. There's some sort of revival in these churches, and we start to say no. I'm reading a book right now, and it's very good. It's what is it called? It's the Well Versed is what it's called, and it deals with political issues. It deals with the world today, and it looks at it through a biblical lens, and it uses the Bible to talk about things that we face today. And pastors, for some odd reason, have decided to take the back burner and not do what they are supposed to be doing, which is frightening, because if the pastors were to be doing what they're supposed to be doing in the churches, we would not have a lot of our cultural problems. We wouldn't have the transgender stuff. We wouldn't have the identity politics. We wouldn't have the racism. If the churches were doing what they were supposed to be doing, and what these pastors are supposed to be doing is teaching the word and getting people to profess Jesus, their Lord, as Lord and Savior, right? And Ron DeSantis is fighting the culture war, which I understand. But we've got to have our ducks in a row before we do all of that. If you're watching right now, smash that like button, hit the like, love, share, or the sad face or the angry face. That really helps out the algorithms and gets our message out there. Okay, so be sure to like. We're back. Joyless Behar is actually very, very racist. And I had no idea. I feel like an idiot because I've always thought that Joy just sucked. I mean, The View just sucks. Nincompoops, if you watch this, I'm sorry, but you're an idiot if you watch The View religiously, and it is not the most trusted name in news. It's the most trusted name in news for maybe low information nincompoops, but Joyless Behar, she's not going to be there today because she has an off day. Now, I'm upset about that because guess who will be there? Senator Tim Scott, who might be running for president. And Joy, like many other liberals before her, lashed out at the presidential candidate, Senator Tim Scott, for not being a good black man. Yes, after all, in the eyes of Joy, you're only a good black guy if you agree with her white liberal opinions on everything. So Scott is said to confront Behar over her racist rhetoric, and he's going to be a guest on The View. Only problem is she's not going to be there today. The show bicked him on the day that they knew that Joyless Behar wouldn't be there, of course. So here's what I'm talking about, and if you're on the live stream, you can see this instance where she calls him not a good enough black guy. Because he closely aligns with Clarence Thomas, another black man who sits on the Supreme Court, right? The United States Supreme Court. He's a justice. Now, here's Joyless Behar. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
And he's one of these guys who, he's like Clarence Thomas, black Republican who believes in pulling yourself by your bootstraps, rather than, to me, understanding the systemic racism that African Americans face in this country and other minorities. He doesn't get it, neither does Clarence.
Right.
And that's why they're Republicans.
Yeah. I know.
She's the worst. She's the worst. And I didn't realize how bad she was, folks, until I was like, let's look into her past. And she has just been the worst from the very beginning. I'm sure Tim Scott, who grew up a black man with a single black mother in the South, would have been enlightened to have Joy Behar, the old white broad, white-splain racism to him. But Joy, like I said, Joy Behar, she's not going to be present for this interview today. It's her day off. I would have loved to seen Tim Scott just enlighten her and prove to her how racist she really is. Now, Joy Behar comments about Scott are not the only time she's lashed out about black Americans. This is just her most recent one I just played for you. So back in 2020, there's this black congressional candidate. Her name's Kimberly. And she called out Joy Behar for performing in blackface. Yes, you heard that correctly. Joy Behar performing in blackface. Let's take a listen to it. And like I said, if you're watching on the live stream, you can see the clip from The View. Here we go.
President Trump admitted that he wanted to publicly downplay the threat of the pandemic, even though he knew it was spread through the air and was going to be very deadly. Now, we see how the virus is disproportionately affecting the African American community. Do you think continually downplaying the threat costs lives?
That's a great question. Thank you, Sarah. First of all, I think that, we didn't handle the pandemic as a country great as a whole. This is why I talk about bringing the biotech industry right back through the Baltimore City port. We allowed a lot of jobs and manufacturing to go overseas thanks to NAFTA and the Bill Clinton administration, and that's why he's pulling it back. Had we had that medical equipment industry here, we probably would have been more equipped to better handle the pandemic. Now, you're saying disproportionately affecting black lives. If you look at cities of Baltimore, you've got things called like a food desert. And this is where you're sitting there and they don't have grocery stores. They don't have what they need around them in their neighborhoods. And so, yeah, I believe a coronavirus pandemic would affect us more. I mean, look at my campaign ad. Look at the living conditions. That would affect us more. Absolutely. That's why I'm running for office.
Come on, Kim. Excuse me, I have to say something to you. He told Bob Woodward that it was a very serious issue and it's airborne and that it was terrible. And then he went out and told the American people, don't wear masks, it's all going to go away. You have to put some blame on your president. I'm sorry. You're putting it on something extraneous here. Talk to the point, please.
Is this Joy speaking? The same Joy? The same Joy that paraded around in blackface not too long ago? Come on, Joy. I don't think you should be asking these questions. I am an African-American.
Excuse me. The black community had my back. They know that that was not blackface. That was an homage. Oh, please, just answer the question.
The black community has your back? The black community has your back?
They do. Sonny,
the black community did not vote for you. Well, the black community did not vote for you. What planet
it was during a special election. Sonny, can I speak?
What planet are you living on?
It was during a special election.
All right, I'm done with that. Oh, gosh. So there you have it, folks. That was back in 2020. So that was a very combative exchange. And Joy Behar tried to say that the black community everybody just loved her in blackface, I guess. And she tried to tell a black woman, Kimberly, who was a black congressional candidate, that she didn't have black people backing her. And, and here's another thing. In 2022, I guess she didn't think that black people could understand how to obtain a legal firearm because they're too stupid or whatever. Like, this is what she says, folks. This is not hyperbole. I have it right here. Here's Joy Behar and the rest of them on The View talking about how black people can't get guns.
As a gun owner, there are people in this country that genuinely own guns and just do so for the same reason that we all sit up.
An AR-15?
No, let me tell you. Okay, let me give you a story. There's a man in Connecticut that watched his neighbor have a home invasion and watched their whole family get killed. He built his own AR-15 because Connecticut won't let you buy them, but you can abide by rules that allow you to build them. And then he has one in his house to protect his family because he never wants to see that happen again. He is a black man. It's odd. Most AR-15 owners are former military, 35 plus and married. So that's all I'm saying is that they're not these crazy people.
Here's the thing. Once black people get guns in this country, the gun laws will change. Trust me.
Racist. It's so racist. It's unbelievable, folks. And it's not the first time that she's lashed out at Tim Scott either. Here I have yet another time where she lashes out at Tim Scott. I don't know what her problem is with Tim Scott. Probably because he's black, right? This is the only explanation why she's doing this to Tim Scott specifically, where she says that he's not black enough, that he doesn't understand what systemic racism is. So here we go.
Session with the Republicans right now that Biden is not reaching across the aisle, okay? And yet, when he says, Biden, we're on track to cutting child poverty in half, you look around that chamber and nobody on the Republican side is standing or clapping. Does that mean that they are for child poverty? When he says that he wants clean water, and Kevin McCarthy is sitting on his hands and not reacting, does Kevin McCarthy like dirty water? Maybe he should, campaign on that. Dirty water for everybody. As far as, and then the other thing I have to say is I thought it was brilliant. I thought Biden was incredibly warm and presidential and just great. And to see those two beautiful, intelligent, brilliant women behind him makes me feel like I just felt wonderful. Now, Tim Scott, he does not seem to understand, and a lot of them don't seem to understand, the difference between a racist country and a systemic racism. They don't seem to get the difference. Yes, maybe it's not a racist country. Maybe Americans, the majority, are not racist. But we live in a country with systemic racism. We discussed it this week again already about housing and about education and all.
Word salad from Joy Behar. Systemic racism. He doesn't understand what systemic. I'm just going to point this out. Tim Scott is black. Joy Behar is white. Like I said, he's scheduled to appear on The View today, and no doubt he's probably going to get asked about January 6th, and maybe they'll ask him how to pronounce Desantis. Is it DeSantis or DeSantis? Let me know in the chat. If you're watching on Facebook Live, or text it in at 309-451-9299. It would have been nice to see Joy, and if she had some lady cojones, she could have challenged the senator's blackness to his face, but she's not going to be there today. My gut says that if she didn't already have today off, she would have called in sick. 309-451-9299. I do want to play this for us. Donald Trump was out at a town hall in Iowa, and he talks about the death toll in Ukraine. This is very important. Listen up. Here we go.
Being decimated. By the way, the deaths are far more than they're reported. You know, when they say 9 apartment houses got knocked down and 2 people got hurt, no, hundreds of people died. The numbers are much different than what you're being told. I will get them into a room and they will, and I know an exact way. Number one, you tell one, you're not going to get anything unless you make a deal. You tell the other one, they're going to get a lot unless you make a deal. And you just sit them and you put them in, and you have to make a determination.
Mm-hmm. So there's President Donald Trump speaking at that town hall in Iowa. Now, I have been following all of these campaigns pretty closely. Not so much Nikki Haley, because I'm just going to dismiss her as another Lindsey Graham neocon. Every poll I've ever seen, Trump is running away with this thing. How's the back and forth on this? Let me analyze this for everybody, okay? Ron DeSantis. Love Ron DeSantis. Love what he's done here domestically. As a governor in Florida, their campaign strategy is to go after Donald Trump on COVID. COVID. What did you do? You turned the country over to Fauci. You know the narrative. You did this and this and this and this. This is what Ron DeSantis is doing. And then Donald Trump responds and says, you did all of the exact same things. Now there's this revisionist history going on because Florida did lock down. They did have vaccine mandates. They did put people in masks. And now they're trying to pretend like that never happened. It did. Florida shut down in the beginning of the pandemic. Mainstream media, they do back that up. And I mean, you can't refute video evidence of people being forced to be vaccinated and Florida literally being forced to lock down. I mean, they were arresting people on beaches because they were surfing, right? I actually think that might have happened in California, but I mean, they were shutting down beaches. I mean, this happened. Okay, we're not revising history or we're not doing this revisionary history thing. I'm sick of it. Now, there were rollbacks, and nobody rolled back on the COVID-19 restrictions and mandates as much as Ron DeSantis did, in my opinion. He rolled back on it a lot. And I don't think nobody was doing what Ron DeSantis was in Florida. However, he did lock down Florida. And Trump is responding to that, saying, you did. You locked down just as much as everybody else did, Ron. So don't sit there and try to say that, you would have done anything differently, because at the time we didn't know. And Donald Trump trusted these bureaucrats. And I do think that he shouldn't have trusted these bureaucrats from the beginning. But what do? Right? This is a long history of bureaucracy, a long history of the deep state. It's deep. There's a reason why it's called the deep state. It's infiltrated every little agency, the FBI, the DOJ. We've seen this play out. Foreign policy. I don't know any other politician in America saying the things that Donald Trump is saying right now about foreign policy. You had Senator Lindsey Graham over there with Zelensky at a table, and he says, quote, the best money America has ever spent was to kill Russians. As if the goal of the United States is to kill people in other countries. I'm sorry, but I thought the goal of the United States government was to protect our ability to provide for the well-being of our families here in America and the well-being of us. To secure peace, safety, prosperity in America, so that way we can have families, that way we can protect them, our families. I don't want to go blow up Russians because you watched a lot of 70s and 80s movies about the Cold War. Lindsay, you want a war that you never got, okay? And if you want to go serve, go ahead. Strap up your boots. Go take part in the counteroffensive that's supposed to be happening in Bakhmut. Go serve. Trump is talking, and I don't know if he's just got this gut feeling or what, but now he's accusing officials, Ukraine officials, U.S. officials, of lying about the death toll in Ukraine. Now, he might actually have, and I think that, personally, I think that this is true, he might have some boots on the ground people, sources. Mind you, he's very well liked in the military community and has some respect in the military community. He might be getting information, insider information on the real death toll here. And I think he knows something that we don't. You might disagree with me. That's fine. Go ahead. You might think that we should send tanks, F-16s, and who cares? Who cares if the Mexican cartels get their hands on some of it? It's worth it to defend the free world. I'll tell you right now that Donald Trump and what he says about peace should be priority number one. He's the only one willing to go out there and say, we need peace in Ukraine. He says both sides need to get together and there needs to be some harsh words said, some harsh rhetoric. And Trump, I don't know, I think he made a joke one time and he said nasty things to Putin and told him that he'd obliterate the Kremlin and the St. Basil's, I think I'm saying that right, cathedral is a big cathedral for them. Over there in Russia. I think that's in Moscow. But he said, look, I'm going to obliterate it if you push into Ukraine. And guess what happened? He didn't push into Ukraine. He said the same thing to Xi Jinping about Taiwan. And guess what happened? Xi Jinping wasn't going into Taiwan, but now we have both happening under Joe Biden. Trump was keeping peace through strength, and he used economic leverage to do it. This is what he was doing. And you can do all the revisionism you want. You can try to revise history. Trump cared about peace at the end of the day, and they are now going after him because there were plans to go after Iran. We've seen this. They're trying to go after Donald Trump, saying that he had these classified plans in Mar-a-Lago and that he should be punished for that. Although the Presidential Documents Act, there's a Documents Act out there that says that the president can have any kind of document he wants. That's why that's why Congress funds the office of the former president. I've gone through that before. But General Milley, he had it all planned to go into Iran. Guess what happened? Donald Trump kept our boys, our military out of harm's way, and Joe Biden right now is marching us into World War III. I've got to take a break. On the other side, I've got exclusive content for you about the F-16s. These pilots, they attempted to contact this pilot in a private jet. There was this big boom yesterday afternoon, created by F-16 fighter jets that tried to scramble and intercept a civilian aircraft. I guess the aircraft was not a threat to the Capitol, to the White House, but they were in a red alert situation. So I've got the story here next on the Morning Buzz. Good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're watching right now, be sure to smash that like button. Smash it right now. Smash it with all of your heart and all of your soul. Just hit the like button. Share it out with your friends. It's so important that we actually get this message out there, get programs like this out there, because the mainstream, big con, they are not going to tell you the things that we tell you here on Cities 92.9. I've got so much to get to. Huge exploding sound heard in Washington, D.C. this Sunday afternoon. There was a sonic boom created by F-16 fighter jets, and they scrambled to try to intercept this civilian aircraft. I don't think it was as big as a deal as they're making it. However, the response is what we need to look at here. They didn't shoot it down. They didn't shoot down the aircraft. They let the aircraft, they kind of guided the aircraft or watched the aircraft go into these Virginia mountains. The aircraft was flying on this strange flight path, and the pilots of the F-16s were able to see that the civilian pilot was unconscious. Now, although the F-16 pilots attempted to contact the pilot of the private jet, the civilian aircraft, they were unsuccessful and the plane went down. The Federal Aviation Administration has not released further information about this. So was it a civilian? I don't know. I just think that this is very interesting. Something you need to pay attention to is the response. So they were on red alert, and they said that it was not a threat, but the scrambling here of these F-16s to get up into the sky and to figure out what was going on, I think that they didn't do it fast enough. It was scrambly. Now, the guy who owns the private jet talked with the Washington Post about this. He said that his daughter and grandchild and her nanny were on board. I don't know if they're alive. I have no idea. I'd imagine not, being that it crashed into the Virginia mountains. Quote, "We know nothing about the crash. We are talking to the FAA right now." And then he ended the call. President Joe Biden was playing golf at Joint Base Andrews around the time of the sonic boom. Now, the White House and the Capitol, they were put on high alert, red alert. What that means, there's all kinds of different alerts: green, yellow, blue, red. So it goes green, yellow, blue, red. Red is where you have to evacuate the Capitol. Officials told Fox that the Capitol was elevated to a red alert before determining that the plane had entered a restricted airspace was not a threat. So they were thrown into red alert immediately, and they didn't know if it was a threat or not. Now, these officials, of course, they say that the Capitol was never in danger. I don't know. This is just all very fishy to me. This is something that I don't think has happened as of lately, right? That where we have a civilian, and I don't know where Pete Buttigieg is. Things like this shouldn't happen. Where we have suspicious aircraft. Now, the pilot being unconscious, that might have played a role into it, and you can't help that kind of stuff. But I don't know why. I mean, there should always be a pilot, co-pilot situation. I understand it's a private jet. I don't know. It's just a weird story that I wanted to bring to you today. We are going to be back. We're going to talk about these pro-life centers and how they are under attack. That's what I talked about a lot in the first hour. Also, Ron DeSantis, this beef between Trump and Ron DeSantis over the term woke. I don't think that woke is a good term. I've never thought woke is a good term, because what woke is, or what it's designed to do, it's a play on word for the word awakening. They say that the liberals, right, they say that they're like causes, the LGBTQ, the Antifa, Trantifa, all of this identity politics. They say that you are awake, and it's a religious term, right? A great awakening happens after a revival. A revival happens in the church, and once a revival happens, then a great awakening can happen. We've had a couple of them. I think that there's going to be one. I'm very excited. I hope that there's another one. The word woke is a play on word for the word awakening. And they say that you're woke because you've had some sort of awakening, enlightenment. Enlightenment has also been stolen from Christians, right? This is a Christian term, originated as a Christian term. And you seek enlightenment, Buddhism, right? That's a lot of what the deceiver does. They take language and they try to distort language and take it for themselves. So the left, they use the term woke. I don't like the term woke. If we're being honest here, a more comprehensive term would be evil. When you're showing pornography to children, that's evil. When you are beating up people because they are praying outside of a pro-life center, that's evil. When you are fracturing a man's face because he's praying outside of a pro-life center, that's evil. At the end of the day, that's what it is. And we should not be cowardly hiding behind the word woke. Now, not to say I don't use the word woke. I've used the word woke because we understand what that means as conservatives. Half of the country, like Donald Trump has said, does not know what the word woke means. When we say woke, we understand what that means to us as conservatives. A lot of people don't know what that means, and Donald Trump pointed this out. And I think the reason why he's pointing this out is because Donald Trump is trying to say that Ron DeSantis is not focused on America first or foreign policy or anything like that. He's so focused on this domestic issue, which is great. But at the end of the day, let's talk about what our U.S. government is supposed to be. It is supposed to be a body in which they provide protection of our ability to seek the pursuit of happiness and to provide for our families and to provide for our well-being. All right, let's get into this. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. You can text in where you're listening from. This is amazing. We've got some listeners in Foley, Alabama. Now, I did not know this, and I don't know if they're related or anything like that, but we have 2 listeners in Foley, Alabama today. Kurt, he says, "Good morning, Kat. I listen to you every day." Kurt from Foley, Alabama. And then we also have this is a different individual. He says, "I'm listening from Foley, Alabama. I moved here 2 years ago from Bloomington, where I lived for 34 years. So they're coming in from different numbers. I don't know if y'all are related, but that's pretty funny that we've got 2 different listeners from Foley, Alabama. I also like this text. I call Joy BEHAR, Joyless BEHAR a lot of times, but I like this one, Joyless Butt Hair. I literally laughed out loud. I opened up my text messages, 309-451-9299. I opened that up and I bursted out laughing in studio here. Let's get to the F-16s that didn't shoot down, from what I understand, this private jet. I don't know anything about this. This is very new. F-16s yesterday, they created this sonic boom that intercepted a civilian plane going over D.C. The plane eventually crashed into the Virginia mountains. So I wanted to bring this here to you because, I don't know, it's just incompetency, I think. At the end of the day, I don't know. From what I've heard, these F-16 fighter jets, they were scrambling Sunday afternoon, which I get, but there was a huge exploding sound heard around Washington, D.C. Sunday afternoon, yesterday afternoon, after these F-16s were trying to intercept a civilian aircraft that had entered some restricted airspace. So the aircraft was flying through this really weird flight path, and I watched it. And the pilots of the F-16s were able to see, I guess, that the civilian pilot was unconscious. I don't know. I feel like the FAA should mandate, I don't know if Pete Buttigieg wants to get on this, like a co-pilot situation where there should always be 2 people flying a plane. I'm shocked that that's not like a requirement, even in the private space. At the end of the day, right, you're supposed to ensure that we have the ability to be safe here. That's the role of the U.S. government. That's kind of the theme of the show today. The role of the U.S. government is to give us the ability and to provide us security in that we can pursue happiness and take care of our well-being. They don't take care of our well-being for us, but they are protecting us to where we can provide for our own well-being. But the F-16 pilots, they attempted to contact the pilot that they saw in this private jet. They were unsuccessful, and the plane went down into the Virginia mountains. So they didn't shoot it down. The FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, has not released any information about the crash? Dun dun dun. I don't know. I don't know who died, but this is really kind of sad. From what I'm understanding, this exchange with the Washington Post, the jet was registered to Encore Motors, Melbourne, Florida, according to the flight tracking website FlightAware. So, and the Washington Post has this out. John Rumpel is the owner, I guess, of the jet, the private jet. And he said that his grandchild, the nanny, were on board, and his daughter. And he says that he doesn't know anything about the crash, and he's talking to the FAA. This was yesterday, so I'm sure we're going to hear more today. But guess where Joe Biden was, Joey? He was out there playing golf at the time of the sonic boom, and the White House and the Capitol, they were put on red alert. So there's green, yellow, blue, and red alerts. These are levels of alertness. So red means you have to evacuate. So they evacuated everybody. They were elevated to a posture of red alert, which is kind of interesting. But they said that the plane was not a threat, and it was only a short time that they were on red alert, and they said that the Capitol was never in any danger. Kind of scary stuff, folks. I wanted to bring you that story. I thought that it was interesting. We should take note that this was a scrambling effort. And I don't know, maybe Pete Buttigieg can get on this and try to figure out a way to where this kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore. It's 2023, folks. We should be able to keep our planes in the air without it crashing. I get accidents happen, but I don't know. This is just wild. I'll be back here with Scott Robbins for Scott's Takes. It happens around 7:35 every morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Scott Robbins, you
Yep.
know, I don't know if you know this, but
What?
it's Pride Visibility or Gay
The heck
Pride
you say?
Month.
I've heard nothing about it.
You
really?
have heard nothing about it.
Are you telling me the entire month of June?
Yes.
Is that what you're
entire
telling
month.
me?
Yes.
Wow. I need to get out more. I haven't seen anything about it. I'm oblivious to the fact that oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, and
right,
I'm glad that we have 2 months, right, where we have trans visibility and gay
I didn't
pride.
I didn't know about trans visibility.
Yes.
Is that a real thing, or are you making that up?
No,
or is
it's
that true?
real. It was I think it was the previous month here in May.
Okay, so we go
Or
May,
April?
trans visibility, and then June is Pride Month.
Yeah, let me look
Okay.
it up.
Is July middle-aged bald guy month? Because I need my month. I'm telling you.
Why don't we get a whole month? This is my like for the veterans. You know, we only get the one day. We have Veterans Day. we have
You don't
Memorial
worry
Day.
don't worry your pretty little head over that now, okay? And how can you be marginalized when you get an entire month? I don't. It's okay. Never mind.
Yep, it's the month of March. Is Trans Visibility Month.
Okay. Okay. I need a more inclusive calendar because it doesn't say anything on any of my calendars. I have 3 of them in my house, and it says nothing about any of that. So I'm a little dismayed that I didn't know. I'm always the last to know, Kat, but thank you for keeping me up to date. I appreciate that.
Anytime, Scott Robbins. That's
All
what
right,
we do
all
here
right.
on the Morning Buzz.
I know. You're here to educate. You know, you're here to help, not hurt. That's the idea. Okay. Now that that's over, I guess we're done, aren't we? Huh? For the day. I want to get to this. I'm watching, and I watched this live. I watched Meet the Press. I mean, again, there's some masochist inside of me that makes me want to watch Chuck Todd on Sundays, just so I can be angry, right? Before you head to church, watch Chuck Todd, and then you'll go in and you'll feel better after church, all right? Because you get yourself all stirred up. Chuck Todd's Chuck Todd, right? Chuck Todd's a horrible person. He's a horrible person. He is a mouthpiece for the far right. He's a progressive lemming. Always has been, always will be. He's leaving Meet the Press. And as woeful as that is for a lot of people, I had to watch it. I was actually shocked. I'm like, holy smokes, Chuck Todd's leaving Meet the Press? And he gave him the old spend more time with the family trick that everybody uses when they're right before they get booted. And I don't know if that's part of it or not. I don't know what's going on inside NBC. But anyway, here's Chuck Todd's final salvo from the. Well, he's going to officially leave in August, but this is the final salvo. Here we go. If you got the Chuck Todd clip, yeah.
Yep.
Feeling concerned about this moment in history, but reassured by the standards we've set here. We didn't tolerate propagandists, and this network and program never will. But it doesn't mean sticking your head in the sand either. If you ignore reality, you'll miss the biggest story. Being a real political journalist isn't about building a brand. It's about reporting what's happening and explaining why it's happening and letting the public absorb the facts. If you do this job seeking popularity, you are doing this job incorrectly.
Well, you did.
I take the attacks from partisans as compliments, and I take the compliments from partisans with a grain of salt. The goal of this and every Meet the Press episode is to do all of the following in one informative hour. Make you mad, make you think, shake your head in disapproval, and nod your head in approval. If you do all of that in 1 hour of this show, we've done our job.
Golly. All right. No ego there, right? Now let's get back to the propaganda thing, right? Because NBC News does not spread propaganda. Neither does Chuck Todd. Let's go back to angry Chuck Todd talking about the COVID vaccine for just a second, Kat. Can we? Mm-hmm. Little flashback here.
Nearly 10,000 people died in the month of June. They were needless deaths. Please get vaccinated. If you know someone who's not vaccinated, find a way to convince them to get vaccinated. Literally, the only people dying are the unvaccinated. And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you.
No.
Shame on you.
No, this did not age well.
People are needlessly dying because of your misinformation. Think about it. I don't know how some of you sleep at night who are doing this for a living.
Oh. But again, not a propagandist, not a propagandist at all. They wouldn't tolerate it at NBC News.
And this segment is brought to you by Pfizer.
Pfizer. This guy, and you notice the temperature gets turned up ever so slightly as he continues on. till his anger is almost his voice quavering at the end of it. And he is, and again, this guy lectures you about propaganda. Now, here's one thing I will agree on him with. The people that disagree vehemently with me, I mean, the angry, nasty people, and there are many, you're right over the target when you piss them off because that's what you're supposed to do. However, Chuck Todd's a journalist, self-proclaimed journalist. Anyway, let's get to the correspondence dinner. This is a great line from Trevor Noah. I'm no fan of his either, by the way. But I thought this was a great line concerning Chuck Todd, who is sitting right in the audience when he delivered this line. Here we go.
A lot of big media names boo him. He's trying. Man, these people are tonight. Chuck Todd is here. Chuck, you here? Yeah? How you doing? I'd ask a follow-up, but I know you don't know what those are. Don't.
Pretty good line. Pretty good line. I lost the follow-up because I know you don't know what those are. And that's true. Now, Kristen Welker is going to replace him. So, I mean, in terms of a progressive mouthpiece still leading the charge, you got her. Okay? She's known for that as well. But anyway, I just thought it was funny. I thought we'd play those clips. And poor Chuck, and Chuck's out on Sunday mornings now. I wish they would have just put in, like, Bugs Bunny cartoons or something on Sunday mornings.
I know.
On NBC.
NBC.
Yeah, but anyway, let's get to. Do we have time for James Comey?
We sure do.
Okay, this is James Comey. This was an interview he did on CNN with Little Red Lying Hood. You remember her, don't you? Jen Psaki.
Yeah.
She's actually got quite a lot of airtime. She's getting a lot of airtime over there. And I think that's. I mean, I look at Kinzinger, and he issues a tweet a month. You ever see this guy on CNN? Have you ever seen Kinzinger actually on CNN?
No. They're
After
just paying him, I guess.
January 6th, I don't even know what he does. But I never, of course, I don't watch a lot of CNN. But occasionally I'll sneak a look and go, hey, maybe either that or a clip of something outrageous that he said. He keeps all his knucklehead stuff on Twitter. He got the short end of the stick there. Once the next house cleaning comes through CNN, he'll be the first one out the door too.
Oh yeah,
guaranteed. This is Jen Psaki talking to former FBI Director sleazebag James Comey about, of all things, the presidential race. Here we go.
Most of your life, but voted for, and you may still consider yourself one, but voted for Biden in 2020. Do you intend to vote for him again, or is there anyone on the Republican side you might consider if it's not Trump?
It has to be Joe Biden.
Has to be.
And I'm glad he's willing to serve. It has to be somebody committed to the rule of law, committed to the values of this country. And I'm not talking about policy. People can disagree about policy. There are things above those disagreements that all of us should think about the same way. The president must be someone who abides the law and our Constitution. And there's no one else but Joe Biden.
What? I can't believe
Again,
it, Scott. He said the quiet part out loud. It's not about policy. What? What do you mean it's not about policy?
This guy is in his final 15 seconds of anybody giving a damn about what he thinks about anything, okay? Yeah, lifelong Republican who voted for Joe Biden. It has to be Biden. Okay, thanks. Please move on to the dustbin. And you tell me CNN's still lagging, even without Tucker Carlson at Fox. I mean, they're still lagging.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, very good. Nice job. All right, that was fun. Wasn't that fun?
And Joe, and James, how much is Joe Biden paying you to say that?
Well, the integrity.
That would be my follow-up question.
The integrity of that, man. Yeah, do you get paid per fall? Did you see him? It seemed when he came off Air Force One, then hit his head
hit his head
on the door coming out of the Air Force. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Golly. Yeah, let's go ahead. 4 more years of that'll be fantastic. All right. Have a good day.
You have a great day, Scott Robbins.
All right. Talk to you later.
Scott Robbins with Scott's Takes. It happens every morning, weekdays here on the Morning Buzz, about 7:35 a.m. We'll be back. I've got to talk about Ron DeSantis, how he defines the term woke, and there's some riffraff. There's some beef between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis on wokeness in America. Here we go. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. I so do appreciate it. We're going to be back here talking about Ron DeSantis and how he defines the term woke. So there's a big thing going around where Donald Trump, I guess, said that he doesn't like the term woke and that half the people in the country don't know how to define woke, which, yeah, I don't know what's so wrong about saying that. I've said that I don't like the term woke because woke doesn't go far enough to explain what's going on in these public schools. You've got teachers showing legit pornography to kindergartners, like children. They are grooming children. It's evil. And people don't want to come out and call it for what it is. And we've used the term woke to kind of lessen the blow, I guess, and calling it out for what it really is, which is evil. And I've used the term woke. We get it as conservatives what that term means, but what Donald Trump is saying that half of the population does not know what that means. This half that he's talking about are the people who, just go to work and they're not involved in the political scene, and they should be, right? But they're busy with their families, they're busy with their jobs, their lives, and they're not paying attention to what's going on in these public schools. And he's talking about how those people, these low information people, voters, don't know what woke means. So he says that he doesn't really like the word and that half the population doesn't know what it means. Ron DeSantis, he's, of course, responding back to that. And he says that it's cultural Marxism. And we know what woke means, okay? It's not that we don't know what woke means, you and I, but half the population doesn't know what woke means. And they're trying to twist it and change Trump's words into saying that he, is after Ron DeSantis because Ron DeSantis is fighting woke and Donald Trump doesn't want to fight woke, which is not true. Donald Trump does want to fight woke. He wants to fight evil. And my problem with the DeSantis campaign is that they are so focused on this culture war, which I understand. I hate the culture war too. But they are so focused on it that they are forgetting to mention things like the Ukraine-Russia fight, the war that could lead to World War III, China invading Taiwan. And Donald Trump has been the only politician, I think, in American history who has talked about peace in a way that he talks about peace. Like, he's the only one. And I've got clips to prove it here coming up in just a little bit. But like I said, not trying to rip on Ron DeSantis for fighting woke. I think there's a place for it here in government where we should be fighting woke. I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to say that the churches should be fighting evil with revival. And there are a lot of sleepy pastors out there. There's a lot of sleepy people out there who refuse to call it for what it is. It's evil, and we need to condemn it. And us as individuals need to be fighting this culture war. I don't believe that it is the government's duty to fight culture and to fight culture wars, just like the left has been trying to shove down our throats the LGBT nonsense with June Pride. It's not their job to change culture. What it is the job of the pastors and of us as human beings to advocate for morality. That is us just in general. Not to say that government officials, government people who serve in government can't advocate for it, but policy, I mean, let's keep the policy out of it. I mean, why are we should be teaching kids about the true American history, which is rooted in Judeo-Christian values, which means we should have some sort of biblical teaching or some sort of teaching around Judeo-Christian values in schools. Because it is rooted, our document, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all, right? That's the Pledge of Allegiance. There is something to be said about America, and it should be the role to educate children on Judeo-Christian values in American schools. I believe that. But it's not via policy mandating certain cultural elements. I mean, I like what Ron DeSantis is doing because he's trying to shift the culture in Florida. I like what he's doing down there. However, at the end of the day, we should talk about, hey, what is the role of the U.S. government and the president? I've got to talk about it here next. 309-451-9299. You can text in. Tell me where you're listening from. We've got all kinds of listeners today, this morning. We've got people listening to us from Foley, Alabama. We've got people listening from Mackinac. We've got people listening to us from Colfax and even from Myrtle Beach. A lot of y'all are probably on vacation. Maybe that's what it is. Y'all are on vacation. I do have a listener from Foley, Alabama, who moved there a couple of years ago, where they lived in Bloomington for 34 years. I'd imagine that JB forced them out of the state, like is the tale for many of us and many Illinoisans. Hey, folks, I am here in studio live on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. We're there. Go there, like the video, subscribe. It's fun because I get to show you all of the clips I'm playing. I have video to support the clips that I have on air. I also have articles that I use, headlines that I use. I have so much to get to in the 8 o'clock hour. It is Monday, so we're doing our Veterans Corner with Jerry Vogler here at 8:06. Now, I was talking about Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is going after Donald Trump hard. He has a blunt response for Donald Trump, who says that no one knows, not no one, but half of the population doesn't know what woke means. Donald Trump is speaking truth when he says that half of the population doesn't know what woke means. Who is he talking about? He's talking about the people who don't even know who the governor of Illinois is, right? I've gone out on the streets before and I've asked people simple questions. Do you know who your mayor is? Do you know who your governor is? These are the people who are so busy with their lives that they just totally don't do politics. I like to say this: if you don't do politics, politics does you. But Donald Trump is right that there's people out there who don't know what woke means. They don't understand that there's pornography in the schools. They don't think that exists. And shame on you if you don't think that exists. You need to educate yourself. But Donald Trump is right in saying that a lot of people don't know what woke means. You and I know that it, in short, is cultural Marxism, and that they're trying to pervert children with LGBTQIA, ABCDEFG, ideology, identity politics, transgenderism. There's a lot of things in schools and bureaucracy and corporations, right? We know what woke means. But there's a half of the population doesn't. And what Donald Trump was trying to say here when he says that, look, I don't like the term woke, and I don't know why he keeps saying woke, 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 woke. What he's trying to say is that Ron DeSantis is not able to talk about what the role of the U.S. government actually is, and he's not able to talk about foreign policy. So he's hyper-focused on the culture war. And I think he's got to expand a little bit in order to be successful in this campaign. Champaign headed to Casey, Illinois. Wonderful. Thanks so much for listening, RT. I appreciate you tuning in. Now, we are going to be listening to Jerry Vogler. He's the McLean County Superintendent for the VA here locally. And we've got our Veterans Corner, so I'm excited to share that with you. We also have to talk about these two elderly men who were physically assaulted last week while praying outside a Baltimore Planned Parenthood. And guess what happened? There was blood all over the sidewalk, and one man was left with a fractured bone in his face. I've got the pictures for you here on the live stream. We will get to that. And tell me again that liberals are mostly peaceful. Okay. And that they're so tolerant. The left is not tolerant. They are psychotic maniacs who are going out there and they are pulverizing people who are praying outside of pro-life centers. And I have the numbers on this. It's quite shocking. This is domestic terrorism. It is going to be definitive. I'm saying that this is domestic terrorism. There's no other explanation because there are 157 churches that have been targeted, 87 pregnancy resource centers that have been targeted by activists, by pro-abortionists, and nobody wants to call it for what it is. What it is, it's domestic terrorism, and these people are going to wind up hurting a lot of folks for their religious beliefs, which is a hate crime. If I don't even think that hate crime should exist, but if you want to say anything is a hate crime, going after someone for their religious beliefs definitely classifies, I would say, as a hate crime. This guy wasn't doing anything. He was simply praying outside of a pro-life center, and he was pulverized. I do want to talk about that. Also want to talk about the culture war. Ron DeSantis. Is it DeSantis or DeSantis? If you're liking, right, or if you are watching the program right now on the Facebook Live, throw in the comments section. Is it DeSantis, D-E-E, Santis, or DeSantis, D-A Santis? So just throw into the comment section what you guys think it is. And if you're watching right now, be sure to like the button. Hit the like button. It's so important, and share this video out with your normie friends. We are going to be back here with Jerry Vogler. Now, one thing I do want to get to as well is this whole thing with the January 6th footage. We've got Pelosi, the Pelosi January 6th committee. They doctored these tapes. So there's security tapes out there, footage that was obtained by John Solomon of Just the News. And he says that everything about January 6th was scripted. That's how far this guy went. He said that he was browsing the security footage and he noticed a glaring lack of sound in many of the scenes that he had previously seen and heard in the January 6th committee headed up by Nancy Pelosi, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, we remember. And he recounted asking a group of experts about the sound of the surveillance tapes, only to be met with a response that there was not any to start with. So there were no sounds to the security footage. And then Solomon says, but there was, and I saw it in the January 6th hearings before making this explosive allegation. Here's what John Solomon is alleging. Well, guess what? It was faked. The sound was dubbed, and basically the January 6th committee faked the tapes. They faked the American people by adding sound that wasn't on the tapes. This is a bombshell from John Solomon, who was granted access to these J6 tapes from Kevin McCarthy, the House Speaker. The Hill has it out there. 44,000 hours of footage has been released, of course, to Fox News host Tucker Carlson, who shortly after exposing a lot of what happened on January 6th was ousted. Democrat politicians and members of the media alike reacted in fury at the time, insisting that such transparency would jeopardize the Capitol's security. So people were upset that they were releasing that footage to Tucker Carlson. We remember. So I'll get to that here coming up in just a little bit. But we do have our Veterans Corner with Jerry Vogler to start at 8:06. 2 guys just pulverized, absolutely pulverized. They were physically assaulted this past week while praying outside of a Baltimore Planned Parenthood, leaving blood all over the sidewalk. One guy had a fractured bone in his face. But yes, the left, they're so tolerant. They're so peaceful. They're just so peaceful, these people. No, they're not. And I want to talk about what this is. This is domestic terrorism. People will sit there and say white supremacy, white supremacy, white supremacy. That is the issue facing America today. That's a lie from the depths of hell. This is a big problem. And I've got numbers here, folks. 157 churches have been targeted. We've got 87 pregnancy resource centers have been targeted. The state of Illinois right now, they have created legislation to go after pregnancy resource centers here in the state of Illinois financially, where the Attorney General, Kwame Raoul, he is going after them and can fine them up to $50,000 if they think that these pregnancy resource centers are being, quote, deceptive. This is so sad. This is so sad. And what happened to these 2 men, these elderly men, 70s, 80s, it's a hate crime. But is the guy going to be charged with a hate crime? Probably not. Okay, so I've got that story. Also, Ron DeSantis having a very blunt response for Donald Trump, who says that half of the population doesn't know what woke means. Donald Trump is not wrong there. Half of the population, probably that's a good estimate, don't know what woke means. There's a portion of the population out there who still have their heads in the sand. There's people out there, they're good people. They just don't watch programs like this. I am Facebook Live, YouTube Live right now. They don't look at the information. They don't go outside of the mainstream. They just listen to the headlines from NBC, MSNBC, the Alphabet News, right? And I think Ron DeSantis here and what Donald Trump was trying to say when he says that woke, 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 it doesn't mean anything. What Donald Trump is trying to say is that Ron is being way too focused on this culture war, and it's getting to the point where I think he's actively avoiding questions, or I don't even think anybody's really questioning him about foreign policy, Ukraine, Russia. The only politician ever to talk about Ukraine, Russia in the way that talk about peace, Donald Trump. He's the only one talking about peace in Ukraine, Russia, and he's guaranteeing it. It's a guarantee that we would pull out of this proxy war, this hot proxy war with Russia. I want to get to here on the Morning Buzz, but first, it's time for Jerry Vogler for the McLean County Veterans Affairs. He's the superintendent here locally. Jerry, let's run through the McLean County Veterans Corner. But first, I wanted to ask you about this drag show. I don't know if you've seen news about this, but there was a drag show. Lloyd Austin was questioned by House members about the drag show that was planned for a military base, and they had canceled it. So this drag show was planned. Do you think the military is gone woke, and is there any coming back at this point?
Well, I think there's a possibility of coming back, but yes, they've gone pretty woke because all of the service academies are requiring woke type of training on DEI with little videos showing 2 people talking about pronouns and correct gender identification and discipline if you don't, and this type of thing. So, yeah, it's there. It is something that can be undone. However, with the change in the leadership at those military academies and in the general staff and so forth in all the branches, it's going to be tough because what has happened over the last 15 years or so, those people that were more of the traditional discipline, we fight wars, we protect the people, has been taking a back seat to all this, what I call social engineering that's trying to be done. So it can be changed, but it's going to take a change in leadership because this is all done through the administration, not through Congress, and not through the Senate or the House. So it's going to take a change at the top in order to undo a lot of executive orders that should have never been issued in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to give our listeners some more context here, Jerry Vogler from the McLean County VA, when I'm talking about it was, I guess, for Pride Month, it was scheduled a drag show, and Lloyd Austin, General Milley, they stepped up to stop the drag show after it was said to be scheduled for the Air Force Base in Nevada. Now, there's one thing that I want to bring up. It's a Republican, and he said that China is building hypersonic missiles while the U.S. Secretary of Defense is being forced to explain why there are drag shows on our military bases. This is Mike Johnson. He's a Republican, and he says the fact that these events were scheduled once again calls into question the priorities of our military leadership. So, like you said, I think that's perfect the way you say it, Jerry. The only way is to kind of get these people at the top and the decisions that were made to schedule this in the first place to get those people out of there, right?
I agree totally. And in order to get the leadership in the military out, you've got to change the administration, because obviously the commander-in-chief makes a lot of decisions that traditional military would not go along with. But as the commander-in-chief, he has the right to change that. I haven't seen a lot of people here in the last few years at the top of the military say, you know what, I can't tolerate that. Under my watch, I'm out of here. I'm retiring. Haven't seen as much of that as I would expect.
Mm-hmm. Jerry, tell me a little bit more about today's Veterans Corner. There's an event coming up, right? Actually, tomorrow we're celebrating remembering the fact that we had men and women, at that time, was it just men? I think so, fighting in the military on D-Day. So explain to me what's going on.
Well, it's kind of a semi-event. It's going to be probably less than 10 minutes long. It'll be a bunch of us local veterans here, probably with our Legion and VFW and DAV and AMVETS hats and so forth, but not uniforms. We're going to meet in front of the old courthouse on the east side, where we normally hold ceremonies and stuff. And we're going to have a very brief mention of what we're talking about, which is June the 6th, 1944, which is the storming of the beaches at Normandy on D-Day. There'll be a rifle salute, and there'll be taps. It's not an event type of an event with a lot of goings on with it, but it's a remembrance, and I think that's the perfect word. We don't want to forget the tens of thousands, not only of Americans but of allies who stormed the beaches that turned the tide in World War II.
Right. And correct me, women weren't serving in the military 1944? It was?
They were serving, but they were in like the Women's Army Corps, Women's Navy, and that sort of thing, but none of them were involved in D-Day on site. They were back in Britain and other places doing those jobs that needed to be done, but they weren't actually involved in the invasion.
Shifting gears, Jerry, tell me a little bit more about the Veterans Corner today. This is something we do every Monday, folks, at around 8 a.m. We're talking with Jerry Vogler. He's the McLean County VA superintendent.
Yeah, I've had a number of inquiries over time here at the VAC to requesting, I'd like to find out more about my predecessors in my family, whether any of them are located, after burial in a national cemetery. Because they're trying to build some type of a family tree. And there's a Veterans Legacy Memorial that's run by the National Cemetery Association, which is one of the three main branches. You've got VA Healthcare, you've got VA Benefits, and then you've got National Cemetery Association. The Veterans Legacy Memorial is digitized record. There's about 48 million veterans pages on there, and anyone that is buried in a national cemetery is logged in there with their own page. They've just added a bunch, and that's why it's coming up again here, in that Arlington Cemetery information has been added, and 26 other Army, Navy, and Air Force managed cemeteries for an additional 300,000 to that 48 million that was already there. The neat part about this is you not only find out the basic information about that person's service and, and burial, but even more importantly, you can add to it with comments. If you've got documents, if you've got pictures of that person's military service, and that sort of thing, you can actually upload that to the site for everybody else to see too. So, and one of the things I really love about it, it is probably the easiest government-sponsored website to deal with that I've ever seen. My father is buried at the National Cemetery at Rock Island Arsenal up in Rock Island, Illinois, and it took me less than 5 minutes to find the information, and it has a picture of the cemetery and a drop pin on it showing exactly where that grave is at. So it's really nice, and also be able to see other people who have uploaded information on there that maybe you hadn't seen before.
Well, Jerry Vogler, we are pushing up against a break. I so do appreciate you coming on to talk about the Veterans Corner and things that are going on in and around the community for our local vets, and about some questions the community might have. I will go ahead and publish that website for people to check it out. Jerry, you have a great rest of your day.
You too.
All right, folks, we have got to cut to break, but when I come back, I will be explaining Ron DeSantis having this very blunt response for Donald Trump, who says that half of the population doesn't know what woke means. I think Ron is way too focused on this culture war here, folks, and I'm telling you, Trump is trying to just point this out, and the media, the people on the team DeSantis, which, like I said, folks, I like Ron DeSantis. I think that he's doing great things. I'm worried that his campaign is going to become even more irrelevant than it already is, according to the polls, if he continues to solely focus on the culture war. I'm going to be back here with that. Also, 2 elderly men physically assaulted last week while praying outside of a Planned Parenthood. I've got the pictures if you want to see them live in the studio. You can go there. It's Cities 92.9 on YouTube and Facebook. All right, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. I so do appreciate it. That was Jerry Vogler from the McLean County VA. We like to do the Veterans Corner at 8 a.m. every Monday morning. Now, I've got this in. It's from the Edward County Watchdogs. And if you guys aren't following them, they are very helpful in breaking some news in and around central Illinois. Shout out to John Kraft and Kirk Allen on this story. House Bill 3571 here in the state of Illinois passed both houses in this past week with the Senate floor Amendment 1. So this is interesting. The Senate floor Amendment 1 permits counties and municipalities to hire non-citizens as deputy sheriffs and police officers in the same manner as hiring U.S. citizens, as long as they are, quote, legally authorized under federal law to work in the United States and authorized under federal law to obtain, carry, or purchase or otherwise possess a firearm, or who is an individual against whom immigration action has been deferred to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services under the federal deferred action for DACA, under DACA, process, and is authorized under federal law to obtain, carry, purchase, and otherwise possess a firearm. So this is a very lengthy definition. Bottom line, we're giving guns to illegal aliens to police our streets. That's where we're at, folks. We're giving people who are illegal, who are authorized to work, might have a work visa of some kind, and who are authorized to have, or, legally under the United States definition, obtain a firearm. This means in Illinois is that you may soon see non-citizens wearing police badges with arresting powers over U.S. citizens. Yes. So Senator Rose spoke against this passage, suggesting that it would violate the United States Constitution. It does. Um, so Senate passed the bill just May 18th. The House concurred on May 19th. This is just so sad. The Republican leader, Senate Republican leader Dan McConkey, voted in favor of this bill. Let me say that again. A Republican leader in Illinois voted in favor of this bill. Can someone say rhino? This is so sad. He voted in favor in this bill. Then we also have this bill awaiting the governor's signature. Chapin Rose spoke on the subject of non-citizens arresting citizens during the floor debates. I'm going to play that for you here coming up in just a little bit. This is no different than paying in Chicago with state funds and city funds people to wear yellow vests. They're called peacekeepers. We pay them $100 a day to go out there and play cutesy time and do conflict resolutions with very violent criminals. This is Illinois. And part of me says, I want you to stay here if you're living here. And then another part of me says, get the hell out. This is about to get real crazy real quick. We have people who are not U.S. citizens, non-citizens. People are here on a work visa. They're not citizens. And I've gone through the 14th Amendment. Being born here does not mean you are a citizen. The 14th Amendment says that you have to be born here and you have to have some sort of jurisdiction of the United States, meaning that you have to have somebody who vouches for you, or there has to be something more tying you here to America. You have to have an allegiance to the United States in order to be a citizen. This makes sense, okay? We cannot have people coming from foreign countries giving birth to children here, and then the children are stuck between a rock and a hard place trying to decide where their allegiance lies. Does it lie here in the United States, or does it lie back home with my family? There is a reason why the 14th Amendment exists, and actually it came out of slavery. So actually it's really kind of interesting, the 14th Amendment, where it was this whole case that said that Black Americans weren't citizens. And the 14th Amendment amended the Constitution to solidify their citizenship in law and enshrine it in a constitutional amendment. There was a case that said that they weren't citizens, but the 14th Amendment, it says that they have jurisdiction thereof in the United States, being that they were born here and that they were, sadly, property of white men, right? They were property of white men. The white men who had them as slaves, they almost, I know this sounds awful, it vouched for them to be citizens. I know that sounds crazy, but this is why the amendment was made. They were U.S. citizens because they were here as property, and those slave owners technically vouched for their citizenship. And that's how they obtained citizenship, is because those slave owners had jurisdiction thereof of the United States. I know, kind of crazy. I did a whole season or a whole series on the 14th Amendment. If you want to watch that show, it's archived. But this is no different than putting somebody in a vest, paying them $100 a day to go out there and try to keep the peace in Chicago. I saw this coming from a mile away. Here we go. Part of me says, get out of Illinois. You're not safe here. And then another part of me says, stay and fight, because Illinois is worth fighting for. 309-451-9299. You can text into the show. I'm also live in studio here. I came across this. I think I talked about this briefly a little bit last week. It's official. It's on Governor J.B. Pritzker's desk. It's this whole thing where non-citizens are going to be given guns, and they are going to have arresting power of United States citizens. So you may see soon, very soon, non-U.S. citizens wearing police badges, and they have arrest powers over United States citizens. Senator Rose, Chapin Rose, he spoke against the passage of this, and he suggested that it would violate the United States Constitution. It does. United States citizens, right? And I've done a whole show on the 14th Amendment. I thought that was important for y'all to have that. It says that not only do you need to be born here in the United States, but you also have to have jurisdiction thereof in the United States. So there's a big thing going on right now in the state of Illinois where we're going to be practically hiring people who are not citizens to be police officers. So, I mean, this is really sad. The Senate no votes came from Tom Bennett, which is important. We've got obviously Republican leader Dan McConkey voted in favor of this bill. The bill itself, if you guys want to read it, it's House Bill 3571, and it's awaiting JB's signature. I'm going to play for you Senator Chapin Rose, and Edward County Watchdogs did a write-up on this. He spoke on the subject of having non-citizens arresting citizens during the floor debates. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
Senator Anderson just raised a great point about, the oaths that we take to uphold the state constitution, also the federal United States Constitution. You have to actually change federal law for this to be legal. But put all that aside for a minute. Why on earth would the most important power of any government, the most important power that must be conferred with absolute concern for how it is employed and how it can be abused, is the power to arrest. We listen every day in this building to debates about the police powers of the state of Illinois. Mm-hmm. And yet here we are conferring the police power, the ability to arrest a citizen of the state of Illinois, or frankly, a visitor to Illinois from anywhere else in the United States of America, an American citizen, to a non-citizen. This is just a foundational thing.
It's sad. This is really sad. I've got the bill pulled up here. Will not be. I'm sorry. I can't. Dennis Tipsword. I don't know what the problem is. I really liked Dennis in the campaign. Right. Full disclosure. I did not vote for Dennis when he was running as our state representative. House sponsor Dennis Tipsword. You have got to be kidding me. I mean, this is absurd. This is no different, and this really shouldn't shock you. And here's why it shouldn't shock you. Chicago, they're using state funds right now to hire former gang members, people who have shot people in the face for fun. They're hiring them. They're paying them $100 a day to go out there, wear a yellow vest, and play cutesy time with violent criminals in the streets of Chicago. And they're paying them $100 a day. That's you and me, our money. We're paying them $100 a day via our taxpayer dollars. $11 million towards this program. It's state-funded, city-funded. And these former gang members are wearing yellow vests, and they're going out there trying to do conflict resolution exercises with violent criminals in Chicago who are beating people in the streets, stealing cars, jumping on top of cop cars. It's a war zone in Chicago. And we're paying these former gang members to do that. So if we're willing to pay criminals to go out there and play traffic control, I don't know, to play a therapist with these violent gang members, if we're willing to pay them, and I've told you the story, and I don't know why it's not national news. I've told you the story about Oscar Montez. He's in his 30s, and he was wearing one of these vests. We don't know if he was paid. But he was definitely wearing one of these vests. They're called peacekeepers, I guess, and it's all state funded. He got paid, could have gotten paid $100 a day to go out there and play therapist with these people. Turns out he turns around and, with a mob of 10 others, pulls a gentleman out of the car, beats him so bad he has vision loss, permanent vision loss. This is what the Chicago police told the Chicago Sun-Times. Okay. So we have non-citizens. We don't know anything about them. All we know is that they have some sort of work visa or something, and that they can own firearms under, the void. I don't know. Under the provisions within Illinois that you can have a Second Amendment or have a firearm, right? We're going to be giving them guns, and they are going to have arresting powers over United States citizens. Are you awake yet? And we had Republicans sponsoring this legislation. I'm sorry, I'm getting very heated. I will not be voting for any kind of Republican that pulls this kind of nonsense, and you shouldn't either. 309-451-9299. I'm real sick and tired of these people today. Cutesy time is over, folks. I do have to take a break. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to try to relax. I'm going to drink some coffee. It's Monday. I've got actually a good news story for you here on the other side. And I want to talk about Ron DeSantis getting this question of, hey, how do you define the word woke? People are upset because Donald Trump came out and said that Ron DeSantis says woke, 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 and half the population doesn't know what that means. People are taking that, they're running with it, and they're saying that Donald Trump is a hypocrite, and how could he do this? He uses the word woke. I'm going to explain it here for you, folks, because Donald Trump is the only politician, really, who has spoken out against globalism, about the fight between Ukraine, Russia, and how he would address it. Ron DeSantis is hyper-focused on the culture war, and there is half of the population who doesn't understand what woke means. So Donald Trump playing 4D chess, and I'm sorry, Ron DeSantis is playing checkers. I'm going to be back here on the other side. This is The Morning Buzz. Be a part of the show. Text in and meet me on the Facebook live stream. We're going to continue to talk about this bill. Edward County Watchdogs putting it out there. HB 3571. You can go read it. Basically what it does, it takes non-citizens and makes them have arresting powers over U.S. citizens. So you could be arrested by a non-United States citizen. Yeah. Sponsored legislation. Wow. That is wild. And, he was on thin ice before, Dennis Tipsword. I know you guys probably throw in the comments, do you like when I talk about Springfield legislation? Because this stuff really affects you. It really does. And I wish more people thought it was, sexy or whatever. It was fun to talk about. But Springfield legislation really does affect you. The reason why your kids are having all of this pornography pushed on them down their throats, it's because Illinois mandates it, or they withhold funding from your school, your public school. So Dennis Tipsword, he's a Republican, I guess. I'm going to use that term loosely. Now, there's been times, there was a different time here where we had, now I'm forgetting, I know, Bowtie Dave, sorry. I remember the nicknames I give people, but not their actual name, which is really funny. But Dave Kaler, Bowtie Dave, he had this sponsored legislation that deals with District 87. So you're going to be probably in a very similar situation to Unit 5 if you are District 87 constituent. You're probably going to be in a pretty similar situation where they're going to ask you for a tax rate increase, and you're going to have to say yes to raising taxes if you live in District 87, just because financially it just doesn't look good for District 87 right now. And they are considering putting up another preschool, right? They're going to convert this old State Farm building, and they want to turn it into a preschool because Governor J.B. Pritzker is hell-bent on getting your kids as young as possible to become little acolytes for the state of Illinois and for the Democrat Party. Okay, so he wants to be able to teach your kids about all of this crap in as early as age 4 or 3, right? He wants to be able to indoctrinate them as early as possible. But anyway, so this legislation, what it does, it says you don't need to bring it to referendum, and you don't have to ask the taxpayers of District 87 if you want this new building. So it used to be where, if you're going to add to the district, you have to ask the question, because what that does, it takes a building out of the tax revenue, right? Because whoever owns that building right now, they're paying revenue on, or they're paying taxes on that building, and that contributes to the school's coffers, to their monies that they have for the kids. And it takes away from the revenue, but it also increases because you then have to pay for District 87 to run that building, to maintain that building, whatever, to staff that building, whatever the added costs are for that building. Dennis Tipsword was on thin ice because he voted for that legislation. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am not voting for any Illinois Republican who has voted for Democrat-sponsored legislation. He takes it a step further. He says, hold my beer. Dennis Tipsword decides to go out there and sponsor this bill. Dennis Tipsword sponsors this bill where non-citizens can arrest U.S. citizens. We're giving them badges. We're giving illegal aliens badges, and we're telling them to go out there. I don't understand. I would love to hear an explanation. I'd imagine the explanation is, well, we're really hurting for police officers, and we need police officers. Okay, well then don't demonize them, and don't give badges to non-citizens, and don't pay people who are former felons. Don't pay them to go out there and play therapist with hardened criminals, with people who are literally beating people in the streets. This is wild to me. Wild. Thanks to my good friend Donald Ray Raines. He sent me the Edward County Watchdogs article. Great. Just great article by the Edward County Watchdogs. I do want to talk about another thing that's going on nationally, the attack on pregnancy, and locally, because here in the state of Illinois, all of a sudden we've got Kwame Raoul threatening to fine pregnancy resource centers $50,000 if they think that they're deceiving people into not getting an abortion. Okay. But I've got the numbers here on attacks that have happened on churches and pregnancy resource centers. 157 churches, 87 pregnancy resource centers have been attacked. These attacks mean firebombs. These attacks mean shattering glass. These attacks mean taking people by the collar, throwing them into the walls, throwing them onto the ground, and beating them so bad to where they have fractures in their face. Or their bones in their face start to fracture, and they have to get metal put into their face. Just imagine that as a human being, okay? I don't know if you've ever experienced any kind of pain before, but I have, and that would probably be the most painful thing to go through. And two elderly gentlemen went through it for, what was their crime? Praying outside of a Planned Parenthood in Baltimore. Praying. It's a paradox, Kat. No person is illegal, so how can they stop people from doing illegal things? No person is illegal, so how can they stop? I gotta come back, but I want to address that. Great comment, Becky Swan. I am just so fired up. I've got a comment here. We need to unelect Tipsword. Yeah. I appreciate the comment. I am hoping to get him in straight. I don't know. He was already on thin ice with me because he voted for Democrat-sponsored legislation. Dave Kaler, he had a bill out there, District 87. They don't have to bring it to referendum to ask the taxpayers of District 87 to build out this old state farm building for a preschool. Of course, the state of Illinois wants more preschools because they want to indoctrinate your children with the crap that they're teaching them as early as age 3, 4. Yeah, they want to get them as early as possible. And I know that's a very controversial issue, and people are like, yay, preschool. And I'm just like, no. Maybe if you didn't tax us to death, we could watch the kids, and we wouldn't need 2-income households, and we wouldn't need to go send our kids off to government daycares. I'm sorry, but maybe if you didn't tax us to death, we could do that, and we could raise our children and protect our families from your indoctrination, JB. But anyway, so they want to build out this preschool and this old State Farm building. And what they're supposed to do is ask you, the taxpayer, if you're willing to do that, because then you have to pay more taxes. It also takes that building out of the tax revenue, so you're losing that money, and then you have to pay more taxes on that because whoever owns that building, I don't know, it might be State Farm still, whoever owns that building obviously pays taxes on that building, and it goes to the school. A large portion of it goes to the school. Now we're taking it out of the revenues, and we're going to have to wind up paying on it because it's going to cost the school money to staff it, to maintain it, all that stuff. Now, Tipsword, he voted for that legislation. It was sponsored by a Democrat, and I've made it my life's mission, folks. My ballot's probably going to be very empty in 2024. I hate to break it to you, but I'm done. I'm done voting for Republicans who say that they're going to get in there and fix things, and they don't. I'm done. I'm not voting for a Republican who's voted for Democrat-sponsored legislation. In the state of Illinois, you don't have to do that. You want to know why? They have a super majority. The Democrats do. There's no reason for a Republican to be voting on legislation proposed by Democrats. They will get it passed, okay? They will get it passed no matter what. You do not have to do that. Now, this is really, I mean, he said, hold my beer. The representative here, he said, hold my beer. And then he went on and he sponsored this legislation. I don't know how you explain yourself out of this one. It looks really bad. And Chapin Rose, a Republican, has said that this is unconstitutional, and it is. It violates the United States Constitution. This is obviously some sort of extreme agenda. They want non-U.S. citizens to be wearing police badges with arresting powers over United States citizens. So Senator Chapin Rose spoke against the passage, suggesting that it would violate the United States Constitution. We have already seen what happens when we start to give money, when we give yellow vests to people who are former convicts or former felons, right? We saw what happened. I've told you about this story for the past couple of weeks because it's just so jaw-dropping. And this is where the state of Illinois is at. If we're willing to give arresting powers or have them go out there, play therapist with violent criminals, these former felons, if we're willing to do that and pay them to do that, then there's no stopping this extreme movement that these Illinois Democrats are trying to shove down my throat. So this is sad. It's just so disappointing when you've got Republicans sponsoring legislation that, to me, is blatantly unconstitutional. United States Constitution. I don't care if there's a police officers. I do care that there's a police officer shortage in the state of Illinois. If that's your excuse, then I don't know what to tell you. Maybe we should probably stop using rhetoric that is anti-police. And maybe we should, I don't know, let the police and the DAs and the state's attorneys should be locking these people up and not letting them out after a couple of days. Maybe we should be letting the judicial system and the executive branch do what they do best and arrest criminals and keep them in prison if they're a danger to society. Maybe we should try that. All right, do have to shift gears. Let's talk about Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis can, in fact, define the word woke, and he is refusing to talk about anything else on his campaign, and I think that's really going to hurt him. And it's clear, okay? You can sit there and say that the polls don't matter, Kat. Polls don't matter. I know. I don't really think that the political polling process is as trustworthy as it once was, okay? However, I mean, to sit there and say that Nikki Haley or Vivek Ramaswamy is going to be the next 2024 president is just not true. Okay. It would be shocking, right? That would be out of the ordinary. And to a degree, I know you would probably say Vivek Ramaswamy has no chance to become the 2024 president. And I would bet, I mean, he might even think that maybe himself. Okay. Numbers don't lie. Numbers are good. Now with Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, the polling was much closer. And when it's closer like that, obviously the media is going to run with the more favored narrative. Hillary Clinton's going to be the next president. And, they're trying to do that thing where if you say she's the next president, then people will go out there, or they might think that their vote doesn't count if they vote for Donald Trump. That was what happened in 2016. We are looking at a 20% difference. Ron DeSantis is just barely making double digits in the polling, and his campaign is hurting. Why? Because he's not talking about foreign policy. Now, Donald Trump, he got out there, and he claims that he doesn't like the word woke. Although Donald Trump uses the word woke a lot. He claimed that he doesn't like the word and that half of the population doesn't know what it means. People are on the right, people, conservatives, Ron DeSantis folk, they're saying that he's being mean and blah, 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 and he knows what woke means, and he's just trying to go after Ron DeSantis. He actually has a point here, and I don't think people give Donald Trump enough credit. The guy is smart, okay? Guy's smart. He's playing 4D chess. Let's take a listen to what Donald Trump says here about the word woke and about how Ron DeSantis overuses the word woke. Let's play this.
It's gone sick. And I don't like the term woke because I hear woke, woke, woke. It's like just a term that half the people can't even define it. They don't know what it is. It's gone sick. And I don't like the term woke because I hear woke, woke, woke. It's like just a term that half the people can't even define it.
Half the people can't even define it. But that's so true, folks, okay? People don't know what the word woke means. You do, because you listen to this program and programs like it. Dan Bongino, Glenn Beck, who you can catch later today. What Donald Trump was saying there is that he doesn't like the term woke because probably it's not strong enough. People don't understand what that means. Everybody knows what the word evil means. I think we should be using the term evil because at the end of the day, that's what it is. If you are pushing pornography on my child at the age of 7 in a school that I pay for, then that is just outright evil. Okay. And if you're being blatantly racist, playing identity politics, saying that you are inherently oppressed or you are inherently racist, that is very racist ideology and it's evil. I don't like it either. It also takes from the word awakening, which is a religious term. It's something that happens after a revival, happens in the church, and then there's a great awakening. And I don't like the term woke because it plays on that word awakening. But the deceiver does that. It takes the language that we have and it tries to manipulate it and change it and fit it into their agenda. I like the word evil. Now, Ron DeSantis got the question here. And he was asked to define the word woke. And he does well with this. And this, if at the end of the day, if you want to know what the word woke means, listen to this definition that Ron DeSantis gives. Here we go.
Well, woke is an existential threat to our society. I mean, it's an attack on truth. It's a form of cultural Marxism, and it really subordinates merit and achievement to things like identity politics. You can't have a vibrant free society if every institution is dominated by woke ideology. And to say it's not a big deal, that just shows, you don't understand what a lot of these issues are right now.
I'm not saying it's not a big deal. I want to make that very clear. But what I am saying is that he is not talking about Ukraine. He's not talking about his approach to globalism. And Trump is saying he goes out there and he talks about woke, 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 woke. Half the population doesn't know what that means, and he has to be clearer about it. And Donald Trump is trying to say that Ron DeSantis' entire campaign is built off of the culture war. But at the end of the day, what is the U.S. government supposed to be? What is the president supposed to be? Think about it. Is it somebody who fights the culture war here domestically? Sure, maybe you think that. Me, personally, I think that the U.S. government and the president, they are supposed to ensure that we are able to provide for our well-being. And that means providing security. That means having peace. And the only candidate, the only politician, really, that I've seen that talks about those things and that says, hey, maybe we shouldn't be going into World War III is Donald Trump. And I also think that the reporter here, instead of trying to get to the definition, what does woke really mean, he should have asked him, hey, your post-announcement polling bump is weak. It's 2% up from when you announced, okay? And Trump is way up, double digits, 20% over you. And like I said, political polling, not as reliable as it used to be, but you're the same people who say that. You wouldn't say Nikki Haley has a chance at being president either. So obviously polling is helpful to a degree. I think that that's a bigger deal. than what his supporters are willing to admit, that the fact that his launch was so bad. It was so bad. That Twitter glitch, I don't know if it was a glitch with the servers. I think that it wasn't. I think that it was just Ron DeSantis's campaign had bad internet. I think that we like to say it's a server crash. No, I think it was just Ron DeSantis having a bad internet connection. But I think that really hurt him, and he needs to answer for it and explain why he did it on Twitter, because I actually really like the fact that he did it on Twitter. It's 2023. I think that not everybody's on Twitter, but I think that he wanted to use Twitter for a specific purpose, but it didn't go well. So Ron DeSantis, you need to answer for your polling, and then you also need to answer about Ukraine and Russia and globalism. On the other side, I'm Kat Peterson. This is The Morning Buzz. Folks, I am back here on the live stream. A couple of things I'm going to run through when we come back. I do want to talk about something that was said by Donald Trump in the Iowa town hall. He talks, I want to do a deep dive into this town hall and the questions surrounding the death toll being reported in Ukraine, in the Ukraine-Russia war. I don't think that we're getting the full picture when it comes to the death toll. So Donald Trump want to talk about that and why foreign policy matters and why I'm so upset that Ron DeSantis is not talking about it. Colson, you're talking about this committee. Look, I've already got it. Okay, we've got 40,000 hours of January 6th footage given to John Solomon of Just the News, and he said that these tapes look doctored. Well, are doctored. He's alleging that they are because in the committee hearings there were audio files underneath the security footage, and you can hear things happening on January 6th in the committee hearing, but the primary video, the video that's untouched and that was given to them, has no audio. And typically that makes sense, right? Security footage does not have audio. The security footage cameras are typically high above and they don't catch the sound. John Solomon says that these were doctored in the Jan 6 sham committee because why? They wanted to play political theater and get people to hate Republicans and conservatives. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. Yes, tomorrow I am going to go through all of the footage. I didn't get to it a whole lot today, but the January 6th footage, this is big news. John Solomon saying that the tapes were doctored for January 6th. And he has a good point. So the footage that was shown in the sham Jan 6 committee hearing, right? They were going through the January 6 tapes. That all had audio with the tapes. And then John Solomon gets these tapes from Kevin McCarthy, and there's no audio on them at all. And it's security cam footage. So who synthetically put audio in these tapes? Who did that? They doctored them. Nancy Pelosi. I mean... not even to get into the Capitol Police, the response there, the fact that the National Guard wasn't allowed to come in. I'm going to be covering that probably tomorrow sometime because I'd imagine that a lot of people are going to be pouring through the January 6th footage. I have to go. I can't believe that it's already 9 o'clock. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. I love you. Dan Bongino, he's up here coming up in just a little bit after Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck has an amazing program, the Glenn Beck program. Be sure to check that out today at 9. Also, Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins with Scott Robbins is on tonight at 8 o'clock. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. You guys have a great rest of your day. Like I said, I'll be back. Be sure to like the video and share this out with your friends.